who's the cream of the division? Is it Wilder, Fury, or Joshua?
I still believe it's Joshua. I understand those people who argue on behalf of Wilder, but at the end of the day, I sat at ringside. I watched Joshua do what he did against a motivated, ready, well-trained, on his game Vladimir Klitschko. I believe Anthony Joshua is the leader in the clubhouse among all those heavyweights as to who rises to supremacy.
Do you think he could handle that right hand of Wilder and either disarm it, or if it does land, he'll win the fight?
Wilder would have to land that right hand square. If he lands the right hand square, conventional wisdom is that he can take out anybody. But Joshua has more all-around game, in my view, and also I think Joshua. They're both terrific human beings. I like them both.
Yeah.
But Joshua's cosmic. He's very aware of himself. He has a global mentality. He's you don't want to say this, but if there's a Muhammad Ali in the heavyweight division now or in the not too distant future, I think it's Anthony Joshua.
Well, that's funny because people find Wilder the more colorful, charismatic. Some people think
he is.
Yeah.
But some of that is because we're standing in the United States of America. If we were standing in England, I think we might feel differently about it. I always say this to people, on the night that he beat Vladimir Klitschko, Joshua was making $25 million. And he was still living in his mother's North London tenement apartment. That, to me, is an overwhelming statement on his presence as a human being and his real ambition in life, which is not to have that great car or that big house. He can have that already. He wants to have supremacy in that division.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the 285th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me this evening, we have Donny Baseball, Gabe Lewis, and Ozzie Smith. Welcome to you all on the panel. We're going to start, obviously, with Mr. Kovalev against Eleider Alvarez. We'll be getting to that very shortly. Also, a bit of action from Down Under. Billy Dibb going in against Tevin Farmer on Friday night on Box Nation. There was also next-gen card last night. Devon Alexander fought Andre Berto. Plenty going on over the weekend. Not so much next weekend, I don't think, to be honest with you. I was having a look at the schedule early on. It's pretty bleak, as it tends to get around this time of year. People are off on holiday and what have you. There's no Andy Patterson, you might have noticed already. A long-time listener was listening to some old episodes and brought a comment to our attention that we may not have heard on air at the time, but needless to say, it was appalling and required firm disciplinary action. Andy will hopefully be back next week if he's showing any ounce of contrition. Let's get on then, Donny, over to you first. We were having a discussion actually off air earlier on Twitter in the DM. You were having a discussion with Gabe actually about the knockdown and final knockout of Sergey Kovalev against Eleider Alvarez last night. HBO weren't too happy about the fight not being stopped after the second knockdown by the referee, David Fields. But I thought that Mr. Fields gave Kovalev every chance, so there was no real complaints from me. Kovalev, former champion, current champion, he was really given every opportunity to carry on. Now, you actually, Donny, went a bit further and felt that Kovalev shouldn't have been stopped at all at that particular moment. Please do explain.
Yeah, all right. Well, I guess I'll just do it reverse chronologically then, and we'll just start with the knockout. Look, it's a fight that, it's a stoppage that is nobody's really going to complain about. He got put down 3 times, and it's a stoppage that the referee can absolutely defend, and no one's going to get mad. I also think though that if in the first round of the first installment of Pacquiao Marquez, if the referee had stopped that fight in the first round, I think nobody would have went crazy about it because nobody knew what would happen after that. In my mind, there's different types of hurt, and Kovalev didn't seem like he was just gonna, basically get literally sparked out type hurt. He seemed to have his balance disoriented because it was a temple shot that seemed to just sort of take a little bit of life out of his legs. But if you noticed, actually on the third knockdown, he was starting to get up, and the ref kind of pushed him down, like, no, stay down. And he was getting to one knee, I think, at the count of 2 or 3. So, if he did get up, it would have been the end of the round. And I would have just liked to have seen, would have been able to get his balance back and be able to defend himself. And what would he have looked like a minute later? So it's not as if he was going to take any more punches in that particular round, because if he got up, the bell would have sounded, and the round would have been over. So I mean, yeah, I still think that he may have been able to. I mean, he was bossing that fight. He was, he basically after round 2, he won every single round, and it wasn't even in my mind disputable that he won rounds 3 all the way until the round where he got knocked out. So I was a little disappointed at it. I mean, like I said, no one's going to complain about it. I'm sure nobody really besides me has complained about it. But I thought he was a champion, and if he could get up, see what would happen, maybe what would it look like at the beginning of the next round. I think it might have been interesting, because he did have a large points lead on most scorecards. So
I'm going to bring. Yeah, I'm going to bring Gabe in a minute, Donny, to answer.
Pardon?
I said I'm going to bring Gabe in a minute to answer. What were you saying, sorry?
No, I was saying I didn't know if you want me to talk about the fight now, or we'll just but well, I guess we'll just keep it at that.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Gabe in because I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I agree. Gabe, I don't know what you think about what Donny said. First of all, I don't think Juan Manuel Marquez was as badly hurt as Kovalev last night. I thought, contrary to what Donny was saying, I thought Kovalev was badly hurt. And even though he got up and the ref said, do you want to carry on? Fighter's instinct, he wasn't going to stand there and quit, was he? He said yes, but I don't think he wanted to carry on personally, to be honest with you. The referee as well isn't, Gabe, supposed to take into account the time left or the time remaining, is he? It's a decision that's to be made in the round. He's not going to start looking up at the clock and say, oh, if I let him have 5 seconds and the bell's going to ring. The referee has to assess him there and then. What do you think, Gabe?
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. It's more about what's happening right there in the round. I mean, if we were always looking forward to the next break, we'd probably make some decisions that would probably get people hurt. He was out. He was done. You could see it. His legs were wobbly. He got hit with a jab, and it looked like, Jesus Christ had thumped him. His head went just snapping back. His head was going all over the place every time he got hit. I mean, he was definitely, from what I think I saw, looked like he was concussed. And, that next blow could have been the last one. And I'm not one to play it safe. I thought HBO sounded like a bunch of dicks last night because they were whining about the referee letting him get up after the second knockdown. And there's something wrong with HBO lately because they've been doing that shit every fight recently where somebody's been wobbled and hurt. They've been complaining because it's going on too long and that kind of stuff, which I don't know if that's something that they're getting from the people in the trailers or where it's coming from, but it's a bunch of bullshit. I think that they gave him enough chances to defend himself last night. He didn't do it. I mean, he went down 3 times. I'm, not saying that we should always abide by the 3 knockdown rule. If somebody gets knocked down 3 times, that they're out of the fight. But you could see clear as day, his eyes and his head and everything. He just wasn't there. So to me, it was a good stoppage. Being a fan of the guy, would like to see him, keep going and get that minute break. But I just don't see that being the case last night. I mean, like I said, I think he was hurt badly enough from what I saw to say one more punch could be the last one. And you definitely want to get somebody hurt permanently just because you're willing to let them see if they can last another 5 seconds to make it out of the round. If he got hit one more time, he was going down again. So in my mind, it doesn't really make any difference whether it was, stopped right there or not. He wasn't coming back in that fight. I mean, he was done.
Any response, Donny, before we move on to what Gabe just said?
No, I mean, I guess that's that. I mean, obviously it's a judgment call, as these things always are, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not really complaining about it. To me, it's a justifiable stoppage. I'm just saying that I think that there still might have been more fight left in him. I wasn't convinced that he was absolutely done, but I mean, be that as it may, he still got knocked down 3 times, and and Alvarez pulled this fight out of the, pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and you got to give him credit. I mean, I would say I can't really say that he fought a brilliant fight. He's fast fighter. He was beating Kovalev to the punch at the beginning. He's athletic, but Kovalev started walking him down, taking control, timing him. And I basically I thought for sure that he was going to actually stop Alvarez, but to Alvarez's credit, he did get really, really hurt, in the fourth. And I thought if there was a little bit more time left in that round, he would be ready to go. But, he showed a lot of heart coming back from that. And, Kovalev, I think, made a mistake also of thinking that, well, I got this guy in the fourth now. I can get him to do that for me again in the fifth or the sixth. Like, it's just a matter of time. And I think that his big mistake was not stepping on the gas and not pouncing on him, at the beginning of that fifth round, and just pouring it on him. I think maybe he was worried about his stamina, and he let Alvarez back off the hook and back into the fight. And I think that was his big mistake. I mean, I think he has so much trust in that power, and sometimes he can't imagine he'd get knocked out like that. So I think that he just thought, oh, I'll just bide my time here, and I'll get him hurt again, and then I'll finish him next time. I think he should have came with everything, and I think he didn't respect Alvarez as much as he should have, and didn't realize that this guy had the power to hurt him.
Donny, can I just push back on you for that fourth round? Actually, I think it was a little bit overrated. I'm not sure that Alvarez was as badly shaken as people said. I thought that Kovalev seemed to be trying to motivate himself more than anything and convince himself he had the aggression, the power. It was a bit of a mythical round, I thought.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt he was. Are you saying you don't think he was hurt at all?
No, I'm not saying I don't think he was hurt at all, but I don't think that Kovalev was close to getting Alvarez out of there like some people did. I think that Kovalev just had a better round. He came out, he was more aggressive, and he was trying to convince himself as much as anything. I don't think Alvarez was as badly hurt or as close to going as some people, like yourself, thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that I thought that at that point, if Kovalev had came out in the fifth, he might and really poured it on him. I'd like to see what would have happened then, because I mean, he was taking a lot of flush power punches, especially near the end of that round, right to the head. And so obviously you're not taking those kind of punches if you aren't hurt. So, I mean, I thought that maybe it wasn't going to end right then and there. All right, I'll give you that. He wasn't like falling all over the ropes, but I mean, it was a very, very strong run for Kovalev. And I thought that it was a harbinger of, a knockout to come maybe in the fifth or sixth. And of course it wasn't. He came back from that, and I give him a lot of credit for it. I thought he was definitely hurt.
I said last week that I made Alvarez a live dog in the fight, and the way I look at the demise of Kovalev, Aussie, it boils down to this. Even though I felt Kovalev won the first Andre Ward fight, there's no doubt that the fight took an air of invincibility away from him that was then expounded in their rematch. And from that point on, Kovalev's perception as a dominant beast who intimidated his opponents into defeat, it was seriously diminished. And we weren't sure how he would respond when tested again and taken into the type of dark place that Andre Ward took him. We found out last night, Aussie, I think, to a certain extent. And I want to give Kovalev credit as well, Aussie, because I'm not, trying to dump on him completely, because I've been a fan of his career. He's gone on the road. He's done things the hard way. He's never ducked anybody. After Shabransky and McAlkin, he went in against his challenger, big, strong, live guy, no complaints whatsoever, and he tested himself. He went in against Andre Ward and he wanted to know where his level was at. And I respect someone who goes in, has 3 losses on their record now, but wanted to find out where he belonged. And he didn't quite make it to the top elite level, I don't think. But at least he had a damn hard go trying to get there. And some fighters never challenge themselves. Kovalev, he found out his level the hard way, and I respect him.
Yeah, that's I can agree with that. But at the same time, he was clearly winning the fight as well. He got caught with perhaps one of the best right hands you'll see this year in reality, and it just completely took it out of him. And I don't know. I wonder if he's got stamina issues. He did seem to fade a little bit, whereas perhaps 3 years ago there was a lot more in him. And he was a 12-round fighter, I think. I can't remember the exact stats, but I know he used to throw a hell of a lot of punches per round and throughout the fight. And that does seem to have dipped a bit. So whether a bit of age has taken up on him, Andre Ward, I mean, by all accounts, a lot of people felt he beat Andre Ward. He was he was essentially a couple of a judge's scorecard away from beating one of the best boxers and fighters in this generation. I think
fine margins, isn't it? Fine
it
margins.
is fine margins, yeah. And the rematch was completely different, and I think we all saw that. And he was hurt to the body badly, and people say he was found out, but he bounced back, and then he's gone in with Alvarez. And I've got to admit, I thought it would be a relatively routine win for Kovalev, and egg on my face, completely wrong. Because whilst he was winning the fight, he then gets laid out like that. Stoppage, perfectly fine for me. If that had been allowed to carry on, he could have suffered some serious damage because he wasn't there. His legs had gone. He was dazed, and it wouldn't have been safe. So it's going to be interesting now. I mentioned in the chat before whether he'll call it quits, because it's going to be difficult for him to bounce back to now. Does he have a rematch clause? We don't know. I don't know if it was mentioned on the broadcast at all last night.
I believe there is, Ozzy. I believe there is.
So, for me, he has to come back and beat Alvarez. I don't really know where else he can go without avenging this loss. If he does, he's going to have his belts back. Otherwise, he may well hang the gloves up and retire.
What do you think about that, Donny? I mean, this Alvarez character, he doesn't mess around, does he? He reminds me of a more skillful version of Edison Miranda, but he's got that a little bit more refinement along with a similar amount of grit as what Miranda had. Like I said, credit to Kovalev. I honestly think he's done. I really do. I don't think that the problems that he has, like with stamina and maybe mental fragility, I don't think you can fix them at his age. He's like, what, 34, 35 now? I think they will put him in the rematch with... I'm forgetting his name now, Alvarez, and that's the next fight they'll take. Obviously, Bivol's off the table. We'll be talking about him soon. I mean, if you were Kathy Duva, Donny, you know, imagine yourself prancing around in your high heel and your skirt. What would you do with Kovalev?
Well, you know I do that regularly, Steve. But no, just kidding. First of all, I mean, I think it's kind of I don't know. Maybe I'm a fan of his, and so I'm a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for? Like a little bit too optimistic. But to me, you know, who were the three losses on Kovalev's record? You know, the first one to Andre Ward, I thought he won. So did a lot of people.
I had it 116, 111 to Kovalev, Donny.
No, I think I had it 6-6, but then with the point for the knockdown, we had going to Kovalev by 1 point. So I thought he won that fight. And then, you know, then he loses, to the guy who was literally like the best pound for pound fighter in the world at the time, Andre Ward. And then last night he's winning the fight and then gets knocked out with a sneaky, you know, right hand punch that, you know, would have put probably anybody in the division down. So I mean, I'm not convinced he's done, and talking about like retirement and things like that. I mean, he basically has one disputed loss, one loss to the number one pound for pound guy, and you know a very unexpected freak knockout loss in a fight that he was winning. I'm not seeing like how he's done. If he has the rematch clause, I'm confident that he will come back and correct the record here. By beating Alvarez, because if all he has to do is to avoid getting hit with a monster punch, he'd be fine. He was winning last night, like I said, so I'm not seeing like where like this is already on the guys on the slide.
Gabe, anything from you about where Kovalev can go next? Do you think he's on the slide? I honestly believe that he is, to be honest. I don't know what you think, Gabe.
Well, I don't think he's completely finished yet. I would hate to put a guy down for having 3 losses and put him out the pasture. But, you know, just the way he looked last night after the fight, when they showed a little shot of him in the dressing room on HBO, he didn't look all that good. But, I mean, hell, who would? You just got blasted out by a guy who I think a lot of people were expecting you to beat. So I don't think he's done. What he does is all up to him, and I think it's always been that way. He's just a guy that's in control of his own business, and I think he'll be fine if he comes back to have a couple more fights, go into maybe one last high level fight, and then call it a day, because I think he just looks tired. His body doesn't look like it responds the way he wants it to. It looks like mentally he's not gone so much as physically. And whenever he gets in the ring and sees the physical lack, I think that causes him to have some doubts in his mind once the fight starts. So that's kind of what I see. I don't think he's done, but it'll be completely up to him, and it wouldn't surprise me either way.
Yeah, there's plenty going on Twitter last night. I'm still baffled, to be honest, by this narrative often put out there that Kovalev can't box, that he's like a one-dimensional slugger. I mean, there are better technical boxers in the world, of course there are, but this guy certainly can box. Kovalev showed patience, he showed poise, he showed adaptability, he adapted to the threat posed by Alvarez before the knockout. So the fact, I know people are saying that he can't box, and they paint him as this one-dimensional crude slugger. It's just absolutely ridiculous, to be honest. Talking about boxing masterclasses, we're going to be talking Devon Alexander, Andre Berto later, and maybe going 1 or 2 hours in depth on the Jay Leon Love Peter Quillin fight. I know some of the guys in the chat were talking about that. Master boxing display, friggin' hell, that's 10 rounds of my life I'm never going to get back again after watching that one. Let's go on to the undercard then. Aussie's away at the moment. We'll go back to you, Donny, shall we? Dimitri Bivol against Isaac Chilemba. It was a two-part affair on HBO last night. I actually like watching Bivol. I think he's becoming one of my favourite fighters in the sport. And the first 4 or 5 rounds were exactly, giving me the reasons to love him even more. But as the fight went on, I think he adapted to Chilemba's awkwardness and realised he wasn't going to get this guy out of there. And he just boxed clever. I love how Bivol picks his punches, Donny, though, and his general technique. He's able to see the openings, bounce into range and land them. He's this nice combination puncher. But it was all about the left hook a little bit at times, maybe a little left hook happy, and he should have maybe used the right hand a little bit more. Was it Chilemba's awkwardness, Donny, that made sure that Bivol wasn't really throwing the big shots at the end?
Well, anybody be left hand happy if your opponent lets you hit him with your left hand. I mean, he
fair point.
he landed, I think, was it close to well over 50% of his power punches last night. So I mean, he obviously, shot selection was excellent. I love the the lateral movement, kind of has that bouncing around type thing going for him. He finds the distance well. He gets in, gets out. I mean, he's clearly like he's an athlete. I'm the only thing I'm wondering about him is that, I mean, well, I'm wondering about how would he hold up against somebody who's a monster puncher like that? Because he's not particularly huge for the division. In fact, he's a small light heavyweight who could probably make 168 actually. In fact, I wouldn't doubt it at all. So I mean, he took a very skilled boxer like Chilemba and managed to basically win every round and kind of put on a clinic. Did get hit at times though, and I mean, I think with bigger punchers, maybe he wasn't being as defensive because he figured, all right, if I can't knock this guy out, I'll trade a little bit here and there, and then maybe he was thinking, well, I put on a bit of a show because he wasn't afraid of Chilemba's power.
And also, Donny, sorry to interrupt you, but you mentioned Bivol's size, and we have mentioned in the past he does look a bit small for a light heavyweight. He can use that to his advantage by buzzing in and out of range. I wonder, Donny, if Bivol at times was boxing with the Kovalev fight in mind. Obviously, he wasn't to know Kovalev was going to get upset, but he was looking to outbox a heavier, less mobile puncher who won't fold, we thought, under pressure. Was he formulating a Kovalev game plan at times?
Maybe, yeah, that's certainly possible. I mean, also too, though. I mean, I'm sure that business-wise, I mean, I think Kathy Duva has Chilemba, Bivol, and Kovalev, so I'm sure that I mean, business-wise, it made sense for those fights to happen. But anyways, I mean, I mean, I think though that if he he got hit with a few shots, and maybe he was letting himself get hit with a few shots, because he wanted to mix it up a little bit and trade, and maybe he wouldn't do that against a bigger, heavier puncher like a Kovalev or somebody else. But yeah, I think that he could have some problems against big, hard hitters. We really don't know what his chin really is like, yep. But overall, I mean, when you basically dominate Chilemba like that, probably even I don't maybe even better than Kovalev did actually. Obviously that's a strong statement about where he is in terms of his talent. He's right at the top of the division, and he's ready to. I don't know if I don't know if Alvarez will want to fight him right away. He just won the titles. If he'll try to get a couple of stay busy fights and milk the title before people can get a shot. But
Alvarez, Donny, probably won't be in any rush if his past is anything to go by.
That's for sure. Yeah. Well, was he taking step aside money, or was that?
Well, he was, you see, because last night on HBO they were very critical. They were really down on Adonis Stevenson, which is their right. He fights on Showtime. They don't give a shit. But they were making it out like Alvarez was being messed around. Stevenson doesn't fight mandatories. But it was my understanding, Donny, that Alvarez was happy taking the step aside money. He could have said, right, no, I want the WBC to force the fight. Would that not have been an option?
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching that commentary. I'm like, the WBC is eventually going to enforce a mandatory. Like, what do you mean he wouldn't? See, well, exactly. He had to be taking step-aside money. So, I mean, if he could have not taken that money, exactly. So, they were kind of just shitting on Stevenson, which normally I support, but only for legitimate reasons. Not like saying that he doesn't fight mandatories is just simply false. He pays mandatories to not fight him, and it's your choice to take that money or not. But
exactly.
But anyways, yeah, we'll see where he goes. If there is a rematch clause, I guess some people have heard that, then Bivol will be having to wait again. So I don't know what he'll do next, but it'll be interesting to see. I really do want to see him in there against the big puncher, though. I think that's the one part of this game we haven't absolutely hammered down whether he has that about him as well. But we'll see.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in with a massive puncher. We have seen him in against taller, stronger guys, the likes of Sullivan Barrera. We saw what he did to him. He'd also gone the distance 10 rounds, I think, with Felix Varela as well beforehand. So we know he can fight bigger guys. But like Donny says, whether he can go in against punchers and come out the other end, we're not sure as yet. But Bivol looks the goods to me. Lou Duver in the chat talking about Kovalev. He says maybe there's a chance that Kovalev wasn't that good in the first place, is what we all thought. Not sure about that, Lou Duver, to be honest with you. I like Roy Jones Jr. last night in the corner of Chilemba. He said after one of the rounds, I think it was round 5, you look like a fucking champ to me. Yeah, now you got control. It's time to start fighting. Great mind tricks from Roy, considering Chilemba lost 120-108 on a couple of cards. Although I thought the scores, Gabe, were a little bit harsh. I liked Harold Lederman's scores. I thought they were quite funny. He gave Chilemba pretty much 3 sympathy rounds at the end, rounds 10, 11 and 12. I think that Lederman did that so he wasn't handing in a shutout, and he didn't want to look out of step with the official scores. As it happens, if he'd have given a 120, 108, it would have been in line with 2 of the judges anyway. But I thought it was weird that Harold gave the final 3 rounds. It was almost as if he was trying to tighten the scores up a little bit to add a bit of respectability. I don't really know what he was thinking there, Gabe. What do you think, though, about Bivol's performance? Do you think he's the goods? How do you think he'd fare against this big monster, Eleider Alvarez? You there, Gabe? Don't think we're getting Gabe. What about you then, Ozzy? Let's bring you in instead in this one. I don't know if you saw the HBO. Well, I suppose the HBO version was the only version we could see. Max Kellerman was on fine form as well. Mentioned the likes of Bob Foster, Michael Spinks. I'm going to ask Mike, rapping Rob Kelly about that later. Oh, hold fire, Ozzy. I think we might have got Gabe. You there, Gabe? No, we're not getting Gabe at the moment. Ozzy, jump in. You hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
All right, okay. I thought it was me for a second then. Is it me? Is it you? Who knows? Yeah, just tell me about Bivol's performance and where you see him moving forward, Ozzy.
I thought Chilemba was what we know from Chilemba. Tough game. Putting up a valiant effort. Never really in the fight of sorts. Bivol was never, you never looked at him and thought, oh, he's under pressure or he's struggling here. Bivol, I like him. He's very skilled and he's got excellent attributes. I wonder about. I don't know how big a puncher he is. It's an odd one, really. I think he's got power, but I don't think he's the potential. I know he destroyed Trent Broadhurst, but I don't think he's the real one-punch knockout artist. I think he's heavy-handed without being a devastating puncher, but it was a solid win, one that was expected, really. And then I think we really need to see him probably look to start unifying the titles now. He won the belt back coming up to a year ago now. Who does he really go in with? I don't think he's got any mandatory situations or problems or anything like that. I mean, potentially a fight with Badu Jack. Badu Jack's not going back in with Adonis Stevenson. A Beterbiev fight, I think that would be a great fight to see. That's probably one we want to see, really. Otherwise, I mean, you're looking around and there's no one that Adonis Stevenson. After that, you're kind of wondering who would the one put them in with and what the realistic fights. So I think the unifications are probably the best route, and if they can be tempted into making them, and then I'm all for that.
Gabe, hopefully you're back with us. I know we could hear you rumbling around in the background along the high streets of Texas there. Any thoughts on Dimitri Bivol's performance against Isaac Chilemba, Gabe? Can't seem to get Gabe at the moment. Whenever I'm looking him, he's not there. And then he was coming in when Ozzy was chatting. Unfortunately, we can't get hold of him. I'm going to try and bring our guest. Oh, hang on. Gabe, do we have you? I can hear movement.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead. Talking Bivol Chilemba, Gabe.
I'm here.
Can you hear me okay, Gabe?
Swept up by a Texas tornado.
Texas tornadoes disappeared. This is great radio, everybody. I don't know if Gabe can hear us, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We might have to move on. Can you hear me, Gabe? No, don't think it's happening at the moment. While I bring our first guest in, Ozzy, do you want to give a quick word on the Spanish card? I'm not going to put you on the spot too much. I know Kerman Lejaraga was supposed to go in against Michele Di Rocco, ended in against Johnny Navarrete, but Navid Mansouri got a win and Ryan Farag got a win. Any thoughts on where these boys are going to go next? Any interest at all, Ozzy?
Well, I don't really know what weight Farag is flirting around at the moment. He dropped down to... because he felt he wasn't big enough at bantamweight. His fight last night was at bantamweight, but we all know these fights where you don't have to make weight doesn't really mean anything. They're false in a way. So he's a good fighter, Farag. I mean, I think he challenged for a European title about 18 months ago. Come out on the wrong side of it, but he's definitely no mug, and he's a decent prospect around the Superfly division for sure. Had a decent fight with Ryan Burnett, actually, if I remember. Mansouri's been bloody hell. I don't know if he struggled with injury or something like that. I'm sure he used to train it with the Ingles, so I could be wrong, but I don't know what he's doing now. He's a super welter, so I mean, he's had 2 fights in this year, and they've both been in Spain against absolute no marks. So I don't really care what he's doing at the moment unless he comes back to the UK. And as you mentioned, Kerman Laraya, who beat Bradley Skeet, De Rocco pulled out, so they've pulled in a guy from, I think it was Mexico or something. I haven't seen any of the fight or anything like that, but it says he stopped him in 6 rounds. And next one is the big man from Birmingham, Frankie Gavin, will be making the trip to Bilbao. I can't see that being any different from the Skeet fight, to be honest. I think it may be even quicker. Just a 1-round demolition job.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Ozzy. We're delighted to have our first guest of the evening on the call. It's super lightweight, unbeaten prospect, Danny Wright. How are you, Danny?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday evening, giving up your time. We're just talking about some of the action over the weekend. We had Kovalev in action and also the Next Gen, which we're about to move on to. Did you manage to see anything of the Sky show or anything like that?
Yeah, I watched a good few rounds of the Mashadod versus Cardina.
Yeah.
And then, I caught some of the Kovalev fight as well. I was very surprised with that one.
What do you think about Kovalev? We were discussing it before you joined us. Is he finished, do you think, or is it just something that happens?
I think it's just something that can happen, to be honest, because, I mean, previous to that, he still looked like, the same fighter, so I think it's just something that can happen. He got caught with a good shot, and, that's just boxing, innit? But I think it was just a bad night for him. I reckon he's still got some more big fights in him. But is he the same fighter from before Ward? Probably not, no.
Well, that's the point, isn't it, Danny? I mean, so much of his game was built on intimidation, and now that intimidation factor has gone, fighters might not be as afraid of him, for want of a better expression.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. I think he's lost that intimidation factor, like you say, which for a guy like him, he's a very, very big puncher and stuff like that. People are going to have less respect for him, and they're going to have a go at him, which is going to probably work against him. Do you know what I mean? Because people was always afraid of him getting in the ring straight away with him, but now there's going to be some young guys who are going to want to fight him and take his crown, if you know what I mean.
Definitely, and moving down in levels, obviously slightly, Joe Cordina, Masha Dodd, exciting affair. A lot of people, myself included, thought that Cordina might get rid of Masha at some point. He didn't. What did you think of Joe's performance?
He's a class actor, he's a class boxer, but I think Masha Dodd's shown that there's still room for improvement for him, like what most young fighters and prospects there is, isn't there? You know what I mean? And Masha Dodd's been about, and he's in some hard fights, and I think Masha also knew that it was a very, very big opportunity for him after coming off the loss of Coyle. If he would have won that fight, that would have catapulted him back up to some big fights for himself. So I think he took that with both hands and really had a good go against him. And it was a good fight, but obviously Cordina was just showing his class really in the fight and did what he had to do.
Danny, you're 22 years of age, obviously, so there's no major rush. You've had 9 fights, 9 wins, 4 knockouts. I mean, where do you think you're going at the moment? Are you happy with your progress?
Up to now, yeah. I'm planning on getting my 10th fight before. I've been a pro for 2 years in September 15th from the Victoria Warehouse. And yeah, I'm happy with where it's moving. Like, I had a chat with a manager in the week, and we're going to be looking towards, getting some harder fights now, really trying to test myself and get myself in fights where I'm having to think about things and, work my way around an opponent rather than just getting in and having to impress everyone who's watching, like having to really think about what I'm doing, when I'm in there. So then when I do get into some of these, title fights or, 50-50 fights, I've been tested in it, and I know in my own head that I can get through them in these fights and through tough moments. And I think that's the plan that we're going to be taking now. And hopefully over in the next 12 months, I'll be fighting for some proper titles and getting my name out there a lot more.
Yeah, looking down your record, obviously they've put in the usual suspects as they do with prospects, guys like Ross Jameson, Ali Wyatt. Yeah. The chap that you boxed in your last fight, Saki, he was 5-1, maybe a bit more ambition. You were on the Big Elland Road show as well. Was that a step up in levels, and especially in experiences?
It was. Yeah, it was a step up, and he's just gone out now and won the Southern Area title as well. So it shows I won every round in that fight, and impressed quite a few people with the way I boxed. So it was a step up, but I do feel like they're the fights I need. I need to be tested. I need to have guys who are going to bring the best out in me, and people who I think when I get in with them, I don't just have to beat these. I have to really impress. I have to stop them. I've just got to get in there and do my job and enjoy it a little bit more. And to better the opponent, I think that's the more of the mentality that I have. Just get in there, enjoy it, and do your job.
You're ranked at 27th on BoxRec in the British rankings at the moment. I mean, the guys around you, the sort of names, we're looking at the likes of your Craig Poxtons, Darren Trainer, Chris Jenkins. You could conceivably move up and fight someone like that within the next few fights, couldn't you?
Yeah, 100%. I'll be happy to get in the ring with them. I'd be happy to get in the ring with most people in the country. Do you know what I mean? Even at this stage now. I'd fight anybody, but it's just about timing as well, isn't it? Getting the experience, like I say, and being in situations in the fights where I'm getting tested, so that when I do get into the bigger fights against top opposition, I know I can get through tougher moments and get wins and get the result, and not just get wins on a one-off, but also say if I do win a title, defend it against whoever's coming up behind me.
Yeah, you've got Glenn Foote as well, fighting Robbie Davis Jr. soon. How do you see that one going? I mean, Glenn Foote's a guy who's done things the hard way, hasn't he?
Of course, yeah, he's a tough guy, but I do think Robbie Davis he's a class actor. You know what I mean? He's got a good pedigree, and I think he's gonna. I do think Davis will win that fight, but it should be a good fight because like you say, he's a tough guy. Do you know what I mean? So he'll put 100% into it. Do you know what I mean? But I do think Davies has got that little bit more class about him.
Just to remind our listeners, we've got Danny Wright on the call. He's 9-0, undefeated super lightweight at the moment, going places, we would imagine, Manchester-based. Who do you train with, Danny?
I train with my old amateur coach, Ben Lancaster. We stayed together because we had a plan from being about 15, 16 after I won the junior ABAs. We knew I was always going to be a pro after that. Like my style was always, spaced around the pros, and we had a plan, to try and get that senior ABA title, senior elite, and see what doors open for me. I had the GB assessments and stuff like that, but I decided there was an offer on the table, obviously, by Frank and managing, with that Steve Wood, and we took it with both hands, and because I've always wanted to be a professional fighter, and I think I've got a team around me who really care about me. Do you know what I mean? And we get out, we spar all the best. Do you know what I mean? We're in and around the area, and we'll move about with anyone. So yeah, what's it called? It's going well at the minute.
And you're promoted by Frank Warren. Does Frank sit you down? What type of plans does he say he's got for you?
Well, my manager was talking to me about. He was on about which direction do I want to go? Do I want to go down the domestic route and go for the British, or go down the WBO route? And and if the British comes up, then take that. Well, I've always had an ambition of winning the British title, but I think, to be honest, it makes more sense going down the WBO route and getting a world ranking, and then when they win the big fight for the British title, if I'm there, taking that with both hands and winning that, similar to like what Jack Catterall has done. I look up to, work with, and he's a top lad. But yes, so it's similar to that route, to be honest.
Are you on social media or anything, Danny? How can people follow you?
Yeah. On social media, I'm Danny Wright 29 on Instagram and Twitter. If anyone would like to, follow what I'm doing and my career and everything else. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Final question from me. You mentioned Jack Catterall there. Obviously, who do you train with, and what kind of sparring do you get in?
I train with everyone. We go all over the place. We get obviously at VIP gym there with Jamie Moore and that. We'll move around with Catterall. Whenever Terry wants any rounds, we move around with him. With Tim McCrawler, if he needs me, for whoever he's fighting, I'll move around with him. We get top sparring in and around Manchester. Like, as you know, there's some good lads from say super middleweight up to light middleweights. Do you know what I mean? And I'll spar anyone. Do you know what I mean? So I'm always getting good work in everywhere. What's with the nickname, Danny the Wolf? How did that come about? The Wolf. It's more my style, but my dad gave it to me as well, to be honest. My nickname. We were saying you're gonna have to get through it before you turn pro. And he said, well, at the time we had a load of hair on my head and a little beard going on. So I think I'm going to call you the Wolf. So it just suits my style as well, like, relentless, and I'm relentless when I'm aggressive, but I'm quite clever with it. So it just suited, and it's just always stuck. Well, we'll be following your career with interest from this point onwards, Danny the Wolf, right? And just everyone at home, go and follow Danny on Twitter and Instagram. And thanks for your time. We really appreciate it, Danny. Thank you. We appreciate having me on. All the best. See ya. Cheers. See you in a bit. Bye-bye now. Bye. Danny Wright there. Thanks to Ozzy for sorting that out. And also thanks to John Evans as well, who's throwing a few people our way as well. Thanks to John, big listener to the show. Top man. Right, let's move on, Donny. What should we go to you with? That's the question on everybody's lips. We've lost Gabe, unfortunately. Hope it's nothing serious. Donny, what about this Devon Alexander-Andre Berto fight? I had it on in the background, so I can't say conclusively who I had winning, but a lot of people on Twitter were talking about Alexander. Andre Berto went down in the third round as well. Has Devon been hard done to here? Because a lot of people thought he should have beat Ortiz as well in his last fight.
Sorry, Steve. I have to apologize. I didn't get to see that fight this weekend. I meant to tell you I only saw the HBO card.
No worries at all, Donny. Don't worry about it. I'll ask Ozzy, see if he's seen it. On the undercard, I know I made a joke about it earlier. Peter Quinlan against J. Leon Love. Jesus, that was bad. J. Leon Love, what on earth he was doing. I don't know what Floyd Mayweather ever saw in this guy, but it was pretty dire. Marcus Brown got a unanimous decision victory over Len Castillo as well. Who else did we have? Richard Comey got a win. Gary Antoine Russell. Luis Collazo. Also Sergei Lipinets. Majority decision win over Eric Bone. Did you get to see anything of that card, Ozzy, especially the Devon Alexander-Andre Berto?
I've seen bits and pieces, nothing really conclusive. I thought Alexander was pretty decent, to be honest. Again, stamina issues down the line, which is probably a bit of age and, the amount of rounds done in a ring. But I didn't think the fight was the worst. From what I've seen, I've not watched it, sat down like I would others and watch it. It's been pretty hard work to try and get copies of these fights with no UK TV, picking any of the cards up. Berto, he's never in bad shape, is he? I don't know if he's getting assistance from elsewhere or something like that, or he just eats the right things. But he was in top shape, and it wasn't a bad fight by all accounts. I don't really know where the winner's going to go, to be honest. It was one of them, it was like a bit of a retirement or last chance saloon type.
I was going to say that. It's like Legends boxing. It's like it's not real, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it's just one of those fights, isn't it? It was like they've put them together. It was similar, to a bit like a Crawler Burns. No one really clambered for it. It's just a promoter who's put them together and a fight's gone ahead. But yeah, Berto, he never seems to go away. I don't really know, like I said, what he's going to do now. We'll wait and see. He seems to be done at the top level. Will he have a couple more fights around like the Alexanders or something like that? Quite possibly. We'll just wait and see. I mean, it's just destined now. Collazo got a majority decision win. Let's put him in with Berto.
Yeah, talking of Berto being in shape, I actually thought Alexander was in good shape. He looked like a really good, filled-out welterweight, and he's definitely got something left. I thought Alexander was finished, Aussie, but on that display, I suppose, he could maybe, I don't know, well, I suppose he's lost now, hasn't he? That's the problem. And he only drew with Ortiz. You could see one of these being recycled. Couldn't you maybe pull them out for Danny Garcia or something?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And it wouldn't surprise me either. I was actually trying to think of a couple of British welterweights then, if... Hearn does it, sends Khan over and, on a DAZN card or something like that. Maybe uses Berto or the Alexander rematch or something like that. But another interesting thing, Lipinets has gone up to welterweight as well. Now, I didn't think he was a big light welter, to be honest. Now, I don't know if his move up to 147 is a permanent move, but he got a majority decision result with Eric Bone. I haven't seen any of the fight. I mean, two of the cards read 99, 91, 98, 92. And then there's a draw. So,
what I will say is, Aussie, I was watching it on Spanish language feed, and Ricardo Garcia, whoever this is, was doing the scoring for Fox Espanol or something, and he actually had Bone winning the first 2 or 3 rounds, and I thought, oh, here we go, and he had it a draw at the end, 95-95, and I thought, oh God, he's way off. I don't know what he's seeing, but he was in line with one of the judges.
All right, okay, I've no idea. What I would say is that Eric Bone has been used for, I think Chris Algieri fought him. I think Sean Porter's fought him. I think a couple of others have as well. Like as comeback fights more than anything. And they've been done relatively easily. So, by all accounts, if it was a draw, Lipinets has clearly struggled. A shout out to Hannah Rankin as well. She's from Scotland. She challenged for the WBA World Super Middleweight title, female version on the card, but sadly came out, lost a points decision to Alicia Napoleon. Again, I didn't see any of that, but just shows how easy it is, on the women's scene that she's had 6 fights, lost one, but an opportunity presented itself where she could go out to America, get an experience, where she'd never probably get anywhere else. And get an opportunity to fight for a world title. And Richard Comey, again, big fan of this guy. I think he's the 2 fights that he's lost were relatively close, and I think in both occasions people felt he won the fights, particularly against Easter as well. So he's always going to be a threat at lightweight. Where he goes next, I'm not too sure, but I like watching him, so I definitely hope he gets another opportunity sooner rather than later.
Yeah, MB in the chat there reminded me that Marcus Brown actually got dropped in the 5th round of his fight. I didn't see that one. I saw Lipinets, a 4-rounder, and the main event between Alexander and Berto. Marcus Brown got dropped in the 5th round by Lenin Castillo. Not sure where Brown goes from here. He could force his way into the mix, I suppose. Don't forget, if you enjoy listening to us, everybody, if you're in the chat right now, go and hit the thumbs up in the chat if you want to come on the call. If you're in the chat, I noticed some of our regulars are in there. I haven't seen Fat Apples tonight. I know Chuckwoo's there. Hamed, if any of you boys want to come on, then give me a shout and I'll send you the link. We're going to call up our second guest of the evening very shortly. Leading into that, Donny, I'm going to play a little clip and then ask you about the latest comings and goings of AJ Wilder. Let's play this quick clip from Frank Warren, first of all. Shout out to IFL TV. It was made aware of me this week. Frank was talking about proof of funds, and I thought the way Frank dealt with the whole Eddie, Matchroom, Joshua Wilder proof of funds was brilliant. The way he summed up how ridiculous it was, them asking for proof of funds. So credit to IFL TV. I cut this clip from them. And then this is Frank Warren, everybody, talking about proof of funds.
So did you see what proof of funds that everybody was talking about?
You're talking about Shelley Finkel, who's looked after, before you were born, Pernell Whitaker's fighters, great fighters. It's Al Heyman who works for them, who works with Mayweather. Proof of funds, are you sure? And then you've got Showtime came out and said the money's there. I mean, do me a favour, proof of funds. It's just a total lot of bullshit. You either want the fight or you don't want it. The money was good, you don't want it. That's why it's not happening.
If you want the fight, take it, Donny. If not, the money was good. You should have taken it. Obviously, you heard during the week the altercation as such between Tony Bellew and Frank Warren. Not really sure what Bellew's argument was. It boiled down to you shouldn't have been looking at the confidential contract. Shelley Finkel had obviously showed it to Frank. He also confirmed that during the week. But it sums it up, doesn't it, really, Donny? Proof of funds. You're dealing with Al Heyman. You're dealing with even Espinoza and Showtime for all their faults. You're dealing with Shelley Finkel, someone who's dealt with Tyson, with Klitschko, with some of the biggest names in the sport. To ask for proof of funds off these experienced boxing guys, a little bit insulting, Donna.
Yeah, I mean it's totally ridiculous. I mean, Andy said the same thing actually a couple of weeks ago. I mean, if he wasn't suspended, I'm sure he'd say it again. But anyways, I mean, look, these are together, Pacquiao, Mayweather, and Heyman, and Pacquiao, Mayweather, and McGregor. I mean, those are the two highest grossing fights in the history of boxing, right? And you're telling me that, like, I don't know if they could put together a deal of this magnitude. You know what I mean? Like, give me a break. That does say it all. And anybody doubting that they, could get the money together and guarantee that, I mean, they're experienced professionals, and, asking for proof of funds. It's not that it's insulting, but it's just like, I mean, you have to be some kind of deluded person to believe that, right? Like, oh, well, they didn't show us proof of funds. I mean, give me a break. It's just ridiculous.
Thanks, Donny. We'll give a break indeed, because we've got our second guest of the evening on the call. Delighted to announce we have 14-0 unbeaten middleweight Dale Coyne. How are you, Dale?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Thanks for joining us. We've just had Danny Wright on the call, so you're number 2. You're 14-0, Dale, with 4 knockouts, 23 years of age. I noticed your nickname, Canelo. What's the story behind that one, Dale?
It's just sort of I don't know. I was never asked to be called Canelo, but every time someone come to spar me or whatever, he said he's a lot like Canelo. So I feel like I'm getting him with Canelo. It just sort of stuck from there. Obviously,
you've got the red head going on as well there, Dale, so maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I hope I fight like him as well.
If you fight like Canelo, you'll be doing pretty much okay. You've done well in your career so far, as I said, 14-0. As we said to Danny there just recently, you've done everything right so far, and they've been stepping you up. Nicky Genman in the last fight is a step up of sorts. Do you feel like you're moving on now, Dale, and you might be getting the big fight soon?
Yeah, I mean, everyone who have fought, like I say, as the levels have gone up, I've sort of performances have got better and better. The last fight against Nicky Genman, before that, it was like on paper it was my toughest test, and he was meant to give him more trouble than what he did. I think people thought it was going to be a much tougher fight than it was, but if I want to be winning titles and trying to fight the best in the division, I've got to be putting people away like that.
You're a middleweight, obviously. You've got the guys at the higher end of the middleweight division, Billy Joe Saunders, Martin Murray, those type of guys. You will have people like Jack Arnfield on your radar, Liam Cameron, Mark Heffron, Tommy Langford, Jason Wellborn. They're all ahead of you in the British rankings according to BoxRec. You're number 8. What do you think about those kind of guys, and who do you see as a possible future opponent within the next few fights?
Yeah, I mean, everyone now seems to be pushing up either to British or even beyond, the people that are in front of me. So I think there's plenty in the mix, even in the northwest where I am. There's plenty of lads coming up, the central areas, highly
highly contested. Ben Sheedy fought of it last weekend, and that was a great fight. So I think even the middleweights that Pat's now were telling, even something like an English title is going to be a tough fight.
And winning that obviously gets you up in the rankings, pushes you on towards the likes of the British. The British title must surely be in your sights short term.
Yeah, I mean, we'd like the British. I mean, I was meant to fight for the Central area twice, and it never sort of materialised. But I reckon I'm probably past that stage now. So maybe, I'll be looking at the English. I'd like to win the English and then go on for the British. But I'll just see how it goes. My coach Steve sort of deals with me career, and I just fight whoever he tells me to.
Who is the coach you mentioned in there? Where do you train? Dale, who, Steve?
Steve Mailer. I trained down at the Finest in Manchester. Steve Mailer, Terry Flanagan as well trains with me. So it's a decent camp down there.
Terry's a big old unit. I'm sure you've sparred a few rounds in the past.
I've sparred him when I was younger, before. But I still move about with him. I help him out when say I'm fighting a southpaw. He'll probably come in and do a bit of technique with me. But as for like full-on sparring, I'm a bit too big for Terry.
Yeah, we mentioned obviously the Canelo thing at the top of the show. We were laughing about that. What would your style be? How would you describe your style to someone who's never seen you box?
It's a bit of a mixture, really. I mean, I do come forward. I prefer to come forward, but I think it depends on the opponent that's in front of me, because I fought Gemmin, I was mostly coming forward, throwing the body shots, and then the likes of Ben Davis last year, I was on the back foot for all the 8 rounds, and just sticking to my boxing. So I like to believe I can do a bit of both. But I do like a tear-up. Every fight, you end up a couple of rounds end up being a tear-up, yeah.
Just to remind our listeners, we've got Dale Coyne on the show. He's 14-0 with 4 knockouts, 23 years of age. Any social media presence, Dale? Any Twitter or anything?
I'm not on Twitter. I lost my Twitter account. I forgot my password and just never got back on there. I'm on Instagram, Dale Coyne, and I still keep on my Facebook as well, with my family and whoever wants to add me, fans and anything like that. I'm always on there.
Ozzy's going to jump on in a minute and ask you a couple of questions. Just before he does, Dale, we were mentioning Terry Flanagan there. He's obviously got himself a massive opportunity in the World Boxing Super Series off the back of a disappointing loss to Maurice Hooker. How do you think Terry will get on? He's up against it, isn't he, against Regis Prograis?
Yeah, it's just that Super Series is like the best of the best, just getting in and proving who's number one. But yeah, I think every fight's a test once you get to that world title stage. Even like you say, the likes of Maurice Hooker, people thought Terry was going to blow him aside, and it wasn't going to be much of a fight. But everyone in camp knew it was going to be a fight. If he earned the right to fight for a world title, then he must be obviously up there, world class. And that's the same with everyone in this Super Series. But he goes in there with full belief he can go and win it. He wouldn't have entered it if he didn't think he had the chance of winning it. But it's going to be tough. But I mean, this is what he wants. He wants these big names and these big fights to get the recognition that he's been looking for the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's what you guys are in the game for. I'm going to bring Ozzy in now to ask a couple of questions. If you can't hear him or anything, I'll relay the questions to you. But go ahead, Ozzy.
Yeah, okay. So, Dale, there's a couple of fighters in the VIP stable, Jack Flatley and Jack Cullen. Does a fight with either of those two interest you? And do you think it could be made, or are you too close with them? I don't know if you've done sparring with them. Is that a fight that perhaps won't be made, because you're good friends with both of them?
No, I mean, I know of it, but I'm not really, I wouldn't say I was close to him, but if it made sense to fight, and it was something, a title fight, or he's getting sort of a slot on a decent card where there's going to be people watching it, if it's worth it and it makes sense, then yeah, we'll probably will meet down the road. If we all keep winning, it's inevitable that we'll probably meet down the road at some stage.
And then I've got another one as well. There's a fighter that has had a couple of opportunities, I think, more because he trains out of Jamie Moore's gym. In Conrad Cummins, he lost out to Luke Keeler. Is that a fight that would interest you as well? I mean, I know Cummins is in a situation now where he needs to rebuild. Is that a fight that I know he's probably boxed at a slightly higher level, but would you jump at an opportunity like that again if it was on a card, whether it be a Frampton undercard or, another big BT show as well?
I think opportunities like that sometimes are hard to pass up. You know, if it's on a big card like that and he's going to be on BT and Box Nation and people are going to see it, it's a massive opportunity. But like you say, he's fought at an high level. He's fighting Gemman next, so depending on how he gets on with Nicky Gemman, I think he'll either be trying to push on for some sort of title. So I don't know. At the minute, I think I've sort of got to earn my stripes and get up there, you know, at this stage.
And I saw that you had a bit of a breakout the sport as well. Did that really motivate you to come back and think, actually, I'm missing this, but I can go and do something in this? And I think your recent performances in particular, the way you dealt with Nicky Gemman, do you think that's shown and you've definitely got the bit between your teeth?
Yeah, I think I was 19 when I first turned pro, you know, when I had my pro debut, but I had setbacks leading up to that, and then I didn't end up fighting them for a couple of months, 5 or 6 months, and I think I just lost heart in the sport. But I was young and I thought I was missing out on things, you know, I wanted to go to work and earn some money, and I think it's not things I've ever done, because that's like now when I was working and you think it gets hard in the gym and you're getting down about things, you know, and the stress of the fight, but I think I'd rather be doing this than, you know, I just think of the times what was hard on the building sites when it's raining and snowing, and thinking of going back to that just puts a bit more motivation for me, you know, adds a bit of fuel to the fire.
Thanks very much, Ozzy, for asking the questions, and also thanks to you, Dale, as well, for giving up your time on this Sunday evening. Just finally from me, what's next in the pipeline? Any dates or any venues been mentioned?
Yeah, I think I'm on in Oldham in October the 6th, maybe. I think that's the next date I'll be looking at. That's on a Steve Wood show, you know, maybe an 8-rounder. But like I say, anything really, anything. I want another step up, you know, in opposition. See how I deal with them. I want to be out probably twice. I think Steve wants me out twice before December, so we'll be looking at that in a minute.
Good stuff. Best of luck with that. And if you ever find your Twitter password, we'll go and follow you.
Yeah. No worries, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Cheers, Dale. All the best.
Mate. See you later.
Bye-bye. Dale Coyne there. Looking forward to seeing him and Danny Wright progress. Once again, thanks to Ozzy and John Evans, our matchmakers, our men in the middle, getting all the guests on, especially these up-and-coming guys, because you see them, don't you, in a few years, making waves at British title level and what have you, and you can say that they came on here first. Who knows where they'll end up? We've had, obviously, Ryan Mulcahy in the past, Mason Cartwright, Darren Tetley. They're all doing good things around the domestic scene. Right, Donny, I'm trying to scare up a question for you as best as I can before we do that, and then bring in our third guest of the evening. Let's go over to you, Ozzy. This next-gen card, Joe Cordina against Sean Dodd. We were talking to Danny Wright earlier about this one. I thought Dodd was done. I thought that Coyle had knocked the stuffing out of him, and Cordina might get rid of him in 2 or 3 rounds. How wrong I was. Dodd really hung in there. Scores of 117, 112, 119, 109, 120, 109. Where do you stand on Cordina, more importantly? Ozzy, because it's his future we're going to be looking at more closely. What does this fight against Dodd? It's only his 8th fight, isn't it, Cordina? What does it tell you about his progression?
I think it's a good win. We've seen Sean Dodd before cause upsets and cause a lot of problems for more experienced fighters. I mean, he beat Tom Stalker, who was an excellent amateur. He battered Lee Appleyard, had a couple of decent wins over, you know, some like Italian lads and things like that. And in my opinion, was absolutely destroying Scott Cardle before he got wrongly stopped, and then was robbed on the cards at the Echo in Liverpool, where it was awarded as a majority draw. I still don't, to this day, I don't get how the judges did not award him the fight. And you got to remember, he came on the scene as a last-minute replacement, and he beat Gary Buckland. We all know what Gary Buckland's done. An excellent, you know, domestic fighter. So this was a big step up for Joe Cordina, but I always felt like Cordina was as good as people said. I know people from Wales, like Richie Garner, friend of the pod. He's massive on Joe Cordina. Always said, watch this lad, and he was clearly a cut above. I did think he would stop him. I thought he would overwhelm him, and it would be too much for Dodd. However, Dodd hung in there, and it was a good fight for Cordina, but at times as well, I thought it was a bit of a glorified sparring session. Cordina showing all the skills that he's got, clearly like that. And I would have liked to see him force the fight a bit more and probably get rid of Dodd, particularly after we saw what Tommy Coyle did to Sean Dodd as well, which I thought was And at the time, Sean Dodd was a favourite in the fight against Coyle. So, but for Cordina, he's 8-0. He's a Commonwealth champion. And I like this because they're not farting around now with, these shitty Eastern Europeans. He's clearly got the skills. He's got a Commonwealth belt under his hands. He can get a couple of decent defences, against, like a tough Ghanaian, and that'll make him work for 12 rounds, and perhaps a domestic opponent as well, and then push towards British title level. But there's a lot to like about Joe Cordina. I think he's clearly got ability, and he's one that I'm looking forward to seeing in the future.
Donny, we're going to be coming to you shortly. Ozzy, let's have a look at the undercard of Cordina, Dodd, Sean McGoldrick. I have a grudge against Sean McGoldrick, I must confess. I remember he was on a Ryan Burnett undercard ages ago in a 6-rounder against Ricky Starkey, and that is 20 minutes of my life I will not be getting back again. I noticed Dee Walsh, former Irish professional, was on Twitter last night quite harshly describing the Sean McGoldrick fight against Dylan McDonough, which ended up 78-76 in McGoldrick's favour. He'd rather have bleach in his eyes, said D. Bit harsh on McGoldrick, but what can you do? Jordan Gill knocked out David Berner in a round. Sounds pretty academic. Anthony Sims Jr. This is one of Eddie's prospects. Scotty Calder got a win. Gamal Yafai. And then Natasha Jonas as well. The commentator said last night, Ozzy, it's not quite back to the drawing board for Jonas, but I would actually disagree. I think it's very much back to the drawing board. If 2-minute rounds, the gloves and the lack of punching power they always mention when it comes to the women. If you're getting hurt and you're showing the type of punch resistance or lack thereof that young Miss Jonas, nice girl that she seems, was showing last night, you might have to really consider your future in the sport. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, in my opinion, it's curtains for Natasha Jonas. They were talking about fights with Katie Taylor early next year and getting Jonas a world title. And what we've got to remember is Vivian Obanov she's actually not unknown to the UK fans because she's been over here, lost comprehensively to Katie Taylor. I think it was Taylor's second or third fight. And then she came over again and boxed Chantel Cameron, who for the IBO world title, and got absolutely battered. It was a one-sided beatdown. So when I saw she was brought in for Jonas, I thought, here we go again. We know what's going to happen, but what an upset. Probably one of the upsets of the year. I think Obanov was 33-1. That's a serious upset, that. Clearly, the bookie's given her no chance. And I've got to admit, before the fight, I didn't really give her a chance either because I thought, yeah, Jonas, she's clearly got ability. They're not going to talk up a Taylor fight for no reason, but I just don't see where she goes now. It's difficult to rebuild. She needs to beat someone of Obanov's level if she does want to go on. The Taylor fight is dead and buried. The Cameron fight is dead and buried. What does she do? We don't really know. I thought the card itself was pretty poor, to be honest. The main event was good. After that, it was a lot of prospects or his younger lads in with shit, to be honest. Gamal Yafai stopped off Gavin McDonnell. He was, not stopped, but almost stopped. Was always going to come back against the nobody. Cardle, new trainer. Again, routine win. Danny Yalusinov, I'm not too sure on this guy at the moment. Clearly got ability, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. I mean, he's only 3-0, but still got a bit of an amateur style, in my opinion. Sims Jr. stopped an Eastern European journeyman. Jordan Gill, the fight was announced last night. Ryan Doyle, who we've had on the podcast, that's going to happen in, I think, October or November. So that's a good fight, that. One that I expect Ryan Doyle to do the business in. Gill's only really had one fight, and that was against Jason Cunningham, and that was a Cunningham who was a shadow of him former self, so I expect Doyle to do the business. Now, I missed the McGoldrick-McDonough fight, and I'm pissed off because apparently it was a great scrap, and McDonough was really in the fight as well. He's from over your way, Steve, in Ireland.
He's from Jobstown down south, yep.
Yeah, and apparently he's took it on about 5 to 6 days' notice, took the opportunity, and he's put a great account of himself on. Yes, he's lost his unbeaten record, but as I've said before, records are for DJs. This fight with McGoldrick now, McGoldrick's highly touted. McDonough, 5 days' notice, lost by 2 points. He could get more fights off the back of that and then go and build his career on it, rather than, getting up to 9-0 fighting tin cans. So that was a decent fight. But apart from that, the overall card itself was pretty poor, and if this is what we're seeing now on Saturday night, it's because the better cards, which I think we all say aren't spectacular on pay-per-view, then it's a sad time for Sky TV boxing, because this isn't what people want to see for their boxing subscription to Sky. They want to see more high-profile fights. I know it's a next-gen show, but there's got to be something, put 3 decent fights on it, an area title fight or something like that. We're not asking, for world titles, but what we do want to see is more than Scott Cardle against Michael Mooney and Gamal Yafai against Jose Aguilera.
Good stuff. Bellew of the Week's coming up later. Royden, Rob Kelly's on the call, coming to you on Kovalev shortly. Rob, Gabe's back with us, coming to you on Alexander Berto shortly. Gabe, Donny's also with us, going to come to you on the stuff from last week. Donny, Mikey Garcia, Dillian White, if you have any interest in that. First of all, Marvelous Mendo was in touch on the Facebook page talking about this Natasha Jonas Vivian Oberner fight. First, my disclaimer, says Marvelous Mendo. I'm a fan of female athletes, bet you are. Now down to business. You can like boxers for good footwork, hand speed and KO power, but I now look out for Vivian Oberner for her weigh-ins. I hope women fight fans also have their favourites on the scales, but this Brazilian beauty has really made weigh-ins an event. Judging by the number of times they have had her re-weigh in on a Friday and IFL TV deciding this is worth filming, 44,000 views and counting, I'm not the only fan. And by the way, she won. Very true, Mendo. I know Ozzy was all over this one. Smido as well during the week, saying about the odds. Good odds were. They were coming to you later, actually, Ozzy, as well, on a bet for the week. So try and get that thought about if you can. Let us know where the value's at. Not really much going on next week, but maybe for future weeks or something that you've seen. Right, Rob Kelly, let's get you in on Kovalev. I want to start you off, actually, on a question that I've saved especially for you. Where is it?
Especially for you.
How you doing singing, everybody? Rare treat. Here, Rob, it's about Bivol and Kovalev, actually. Jim Lampley was mentioning Bivol, and at times he was comparing them to some of the light heavyweights of yesteryear. Your Roy Jones Jr.'s, your Michael Spinks, Bob Foster were also all mentioned. Obviously, you can't compare Bivol to those guys at the moment in that esteemed company, but the discussion was more about styles than accomplishments. Where does Bivol stack up stylistically, Rob, as a technician against the likes of those guys, your Jones, your Spinks, your Bob Fosters, technically speaking?
Well, there's a myth kind of around Roy Jones that he wasn't a technical fighter because of his athletic ability, and I think that's not really true. Like, I think his technical ability was what enabled him to land those shots, like, triple left hooks and whatnot. So stylistically, he's nowhere near that. Michael Spinks was a very tricky operator, very, very cagey, very mongoose, like very, actually more nick the fight from you without you even knowing about it. Like, and Bob Foster, long and rangy, like, so I don't think he fits in stylistically close to any of those guys, but very, very high on Bivol, like very high. I'm not going to write him off after a performance against Isaac Chilemba where I was expecting him to stop Chilemba and make a bit of a statement. I thought he was, heavier punching power, but Chilemba's been around the block, went the distance with Kovalev as well, and he won every round. Like, so I think there's better things to come. Unfortunately, I think his moment has been taken from him a little bit, because I would have fancied him to beat Kovalev.
Yeah.
So I think he's probably had his breakout performance stolen a little bit from him by Elider Alvarez, who you were high on last week on last week's pod, like. Who I expected to get knocked out by Kovalev, and maybe he was close to going, but he dug in there, like, gave it all, came to fight, and crushed the crusher, didn't he?
Well, when Bivol got took into deep waters, I mean, not really deep waters, by Isaac Chilemba, with Roy in the corner, Russ Amber in the corner, Bivol was able to respond. Obviously, Chilemba was no Elider Alvarez. The layoff for Alvarez didn't affect him whatsoever. I know that he was losing the fight on all 3 judges' scorecards, but even if you've only got 2 knuckles, as the commentary team was telling us, he's still able to land high on Kovalev's head. What do you think about the stoppage, actually, Rob? We were discussing it earlier before you came on. Happy enough it was stopped when it was?
Oh yeah. He was gone. Like, I think the stoppage kind of encapsulated where Kovalev is at now. Like, apparently he's a complete nightmare to work with. Like, isn't he? Abel Sanchez had to give him the boot. John David Jackson has said what he said about him. So it's probably out there since the Ward thing that he's been self-destructing. Like, as soon as apparently according to Jackson,
he can't put down the vodka, can he?
Yeah, according to Jackson, like, he's like, as soon as he became champion, it was like, that was it. He couldn't talk to this guy no more. He doesn't want to do road work. He's drinking. He's hanging with the wrong people. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like, I think he thought, right, Ward's gone. Landscape is clear for me. Back to the crusher. I'm just going to walk through these guys. I don't need to train. I only need to train for Ward, and I couldn't beat him anyway. So let me just go back to my old habits. Like, and Ward kind of did expose him. And look, there's no shame in getting knocked out. He got knocked out last night. That's what happened. But he didn't learn anything from the Ward fight. Like, if the right hand that Alvarez landed on him is the exact same right hand that started the sequence that led to the alleged low blows from Andrew Waters that finished the fight. But I maintain it now. Kovalev quit that night against Ward. He didn't want it. When he went into deep waters, he wasn't able to get out of it. And the same last night, he got dropped. He was up straight away. Didn't get a chance to clear his head. And the referee actually gave him a little bit of time after the second knockdown to make sure he was okay. And when he got clipped again, he was right. Of course, what do you want the guy to get seriously hurt? Like, his brain was scrambled. Like, so I have no problem with the stoppage. Like, and I think if the fight was finished from there, there was no chance of him coming back into it again. I don't think he's shown that. Like, I think if there's a bit of adversity for Kovalev, you got him. Like, especially if you can get him past 6 rounds, because he doesn't seem to train. So good night, honey. That's my little one interrupting the pod. Good woman. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's where I am with Kovalev at the moment.
Rob getting heckled there live on air. Do you ever get heckled? Do you ever get heckled on stage, Rob? Ever have any bottles of piss thrown at you or anything?
No, I got a guy good one night in Dublin, and I caught him with the old classic red pubes one because he had red hair. So he was shouting at me, "You're shit, you're shit." So I told DJ stop the music, and obviously, like, you're not going to win because I have the microphone, like, so I'm going to have the last word anyway. Like, but I said, "You look smart. Do you read books?" And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Do you read books?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Have you read pubes?" Whole place shut down the place. So that was the end of that. But gotta come prepared. I go to primary school if I need to. But yeah, that was the only one I can remember.
There's rapping Rob Kelly, everybody, telling you how to deal with haters live on air. Right, let's get on to you, Gabe, while I ring up our next guest. Tell me about Alexander Berto. I'm not going to ask you about the Jay Leon Love Peter Quillin fight, Gabe. We've already done the jokes about that. Look like two guys fighting in slow motion. Tell me about Alexander Berto. Was it a fair result, Gabe?
I got home, watched the card with Kovalev and Bivol on it. And then by the time I got to that card, I was pretty tired. So after I watched fucking Quillin and Jay Leon Love, I was about dead. I actually had to check my own pulse to make sure I was still somewhat conscious or going out. But from what I saw of the fight, like consciously watching it, being aware of the things that were going on, it actually wasn't a bad fight. I think last week, whenever we mentioned that fight, I said, I wasn't really interested in it. It actually turned out to be a little bit better of a fight than I thought it would be. And to be honest, I didn't think it was too bad at all. I thought that from, again, not really keeping tab on the score and scoring it round by round, I did think it was fair. I actually think I would have went the other way with the scores, though. A close victory for Alexander. So judging by the actual results and then what I think I saw last night in my semi-comatose state from those early fights on that card, I didn't think it was bad at all. It seemed like it was much better than a lot of people probably thought it was going to be, myself included. Like, I had no hope for it. I just thought it was going to be another pile of shit. But they actually put in a good show. And, before that fight started, at some point, maybe before the very first fight started, somewhere in there, the commentators were saying that the guy who loses is pretty much done, and the guy who wins is lining himself up for a title shot. So I don't think that's necessarily true. I think if Berto would have lost, I think he would be thinking long and hard about keeping on. But I think Alexander, since he's come back, has looked pretty sharp, and he hadn't looked all that bad. I'm not saying he's going to get in and win a world title, but I would peg him to at least be in contention sometime relatively soon, assuming he has no other setbacks and can get some decent fights to get his standing up in one of the board with one of the commissions or something along those lines. So like I said, overall, it wasn't a bad fight, I didn't think.
Great stuff, Gabe. Joining us on the call now, our third and final guest of the evening, friend of the pod, Steve Wood. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm good. Good, Steve. Just come back from Cardiff after watching Mashing Dodd last night.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that earlier. What did you think of the card overall, especially Dodd against Cordina, Steve?
To be honest with you, it was always going to be a bit technically too good for Masher. But Masher did really well, particularly after stopping his loss to Tommy Coyle last time. And, you know, we just said, look, you've got to get through the 6 rounds and try and put it on him and see if he'll wilt and he'll fade. And, you know, Masher did everything. He got a plan. He looked like he was starting to tire around 5 and 6. But he got his win through and, you know, second wind and carried on. So all credit's got to go to Cordina. We knew he was a good fighter, and we just hope that maybe his inexperience in telling those championship rounds, but he did well. So all credit to him and credit to Masher for kind of put him in the position where we'd seen it if he was paid or not. And he didn't.
Were any of your other lads on the card last night, Steve?
No. I was hoping to see Jordan Gill because he's going to fight Ryan Doyle. Well, I didn't get to see that one, but from what I can gather, he's just got another easy night's work, isn't it?
Yeah, he's 21-0 now. He doesn't seem to have been stepped up. He'll certainly be stepped up when Ryan Doyle gets in there with him.
It is, yeah. I'm surprised that they come on asking for that, but, you know, we was going to be doing the rematch with Bellotti, and then Eddie come on and said Dave Coyne was asking to put Jordan Gill forward, so we gracefully accepted it, yeah.
I don't think we've spoken to you since Ryan beat Reece Bellotti. Fantastic night, fantastic performance.
It was, yeah, and, you know, I think nobody gave him the chance there, but the big difference was that he was training full time for that, and, you know, from being a scaffolder, you know, doing his run in the morning and working 5 on the site and then doing training at night, you know, it's difficult. So with him having the 8 weeks off and doing a proper full camp, it made it was a 3 times better than mine that you would normally have seen. So I think that was the difference. And he's giving up his job, so we expect to see the same sort of quality from him when he does fight Jordan Gill.
I mentioned earlier that you're obviously our third guest of the evening. We've had Danny Wright on and we've had Dale Coyne, 2 of your boys. Any word on the respective lads?
Yeah, I mean, Danny's going to fight on the 15th of September card at Victoria Warehouse, Manchester, just to keep him busy. I had him in the office the other week and I said, you know, he's doing everything right and he's going to be a big fight soon. So, you know, I'm going to get him a durable opponent and make sure that when the test comes for that Danny, which will be early next year, that he's ready for it, yeah. And Dale mentioned that I was just got on to listen to the cast and that he's going to be out on the 6th of October in Oldham, his hometown, yeah.
And Terry Flanagan as well. We were talking about him, World Boxing Super Series. Obviously, again, we didn't talk to you about the Maurice Hooker fight. What went wrong on that night and looking ahead to World Boxing Super Series for Terry?
Well, to be honest with you, he didn't perform like he can do, Terry, and that Hooker was probably a little bit better than we expected. So with Terry not being on this form and the other kid better than we expected, you know, he probably just had Terry out on that one. But he's got a really hard fight next time. But, you know, it's a defining fight for him, this one, isn't it? And we've been looking for one. So I think this will bring the best out of Terry.
Yeah, he's very aggressive, Prograis. He comes forward. He likes to throw a lot of shots. It could work in Terry's favour, and, you know, he could pull Prograis into deep waters.
Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, he fights like he's Mike Tyson, doesn't he? You know, coming forward, rolling, hands not particularly high up. So there will be opportunities for Terry to ping him. But obviously, he's going to have to be switched on all the time because he is an handful.
We saw Anthony Fowler knocking out Craig O'Brien the other weekend. What about Fowler against the likes of Scott Fitzgerald? You'd fancy that, wouldn't you, Steve?
Well, to be honest with you, it's been touted for a while now, and I think Anthony was a bit giddy when he knocked out the kid last time, and he called out Scott live on Sky, didn't he? And obviously he's had to follow that up now. He's a man of his word, and I thought with Eddie about it last night. So even though we knew the fight was eventually, I thought it'd be happening down the road, but it's going to happen a lot sooner than we anticipated.
If that doesn't come off, what about the likes of Ted Cheeseman, somebody like that?
Well, from our point of view, yeah. I mean, Scott's been a pro 3 years now, and he's ready to go. I mean, he's fighting on the 8th of September, his first title fight, and I just expect he's to win that. And then I think before the end of the year, he'll defend against Fowler. So, you know, when we say he doesn't come off, I think he's 100% sure it will come off.
We've got Steve Wood on the call, everybody, at Steve Wood VIP over on Twitter. Talking about Twitter, one of your fighters, Isaac Lowe, is quite the celebrity on Twitter, isn't he?
He is, if you can understand it, yeah.
He's doing well for himself, Isaac. When's he out next?
Yeah, I mean, I believe he's got a 6-rounder on the undercard over in Ireland with the Thompson bill. His mate Tyson Chorley, who's on there, has got him in training camp with him and done a big favour for us all by getting him on there in the 6-rounder. And then chatting to Eddie last night, obviously we've done a deal where hopefully it'll be like 2 semi-finals, Doyle v Jordan Gill and Ryan Walsh v Isaac, so that they can fight each other, and the winners fight themselves for the British and Commonwealth. So I believe those 2 fights are going on the 27th of October, yeah.
Final point, Steve, and we do thank you for joining us as always. I don't know if you got a chance to see Sergei Kovalev last night. Is he finished the Crusher, do you think?
Yeah. I did see the highlights on YouTube coming home on the strength and Cardiff today, and obviously he's not what he was. And since the Wars fight, the invincibility he's gone probably mentally within himself and with people fighting him. So he's done really, really well. So I think it's time for him to call it a day. Yeah.
I'm just going to bring in Ozzy a second here, Steve. He has a question for you. Go ahead, Ozzy.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve, just wanted to talk about your promotional outfit, VIP. How are you looking this year? Take it to the next level?
Sorry, Steve. I think there was a bit of a bad connection.
Say that again, Ozzy. I didn't quite get it.
I'll relay it, Steve. Sorry, it's a bit of a bad line. He says, what about your outfit, VIP? Are you looking to take things to the next level, and what's sort of the plans?
Yeah, we are doing, I'm talking at the moment with a couple of TV channels, and we're working on doing our own productions. Well, we do to a HD quality now, but hopefully if things happen like we will do, we'll be going out live at least once a month on a TV show, delaying our other ones and putting them out, so that every Saturday between 8 till 10 you'll get to see some boxing with the VIP kids on, yeah.
And obviously you've got a big stable as well. Is there a potential that you'll start matching lads potentially in-house? So we had Dale Coyne on before, and we mentioned a Jack Cullen fight or something like that. Is that something you're looking to do, or would you prefer to steer away from those and wait till there's might be bigger money on the line or something like that?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. That I don't mind putting my kids together as long as it's fair fights, but when you look at the likes of Cullen and Flatley and Dale, and the positions that they're in, 14, 15 and over, and like, it's not fair to put them on my shows where there's just no money to pay what they're worth. So, if an opportunity come where I could manoeuvre them onto a big TV show, get them paid behind the fight for titles, and Dale mentioned get the exposure that fights like that deserve. Yeah, I think I'd let it happen, but I think it's a bit too late for them to fight on my show for normal money now.
Yeah, and a touching on Dale Coyne again. I mean, I know he struggled for fights at times, really, purely for the fact that it seems people don't want to fight him. Is it a case of he potentially goes on the road, to get an opportunity from where, similar to what Ryan Doyle did of sorts, to really get his name out there, and then he can kick on?
Well, that's what's got to happen with the VIP fighters. We can build them along to a certain level on our show, but eventually, hopefully they've had the groundings and hours, the opportunities come and they have to go and take it and win away. And, it's happened for the 20 years we've been doing it, and everyone seems to think that Josh Warrington was just a ticket and dead one and didn't get these opportunities. But Josh went away from home to win the English. Josh went away from home to win the Commonwealth. So yeah, it eventually has to happen. We can only get them so far, and then they've got to go and take the opportunities. And obviously, what you hope for is that when they do go away and win, the promoters look after them.
And then talking about Josh, so simply, what plans are next for him? Do we think he's going to have a defence at home, which I think he thoroughly deserves, really, after an excellent performance against Lee Selby? Or is he going to sit tight and wait, hope Carl Frampton comes through against Luke Jackson, and then have a big fight either in December or wait for it to go outdoors next year?
Well, the thoughts, obviously, it'd be easy for him to have a first defence and have it at home. And like you say, he will be entitled to that as well. But, he's a hungry little man, Josh, and he wants to really prove that he's a top world-class elite level. We've seen the way he beat Selby, and he's changed a lot of people's opinions. So, for the likes of Josh and myself, who back him 100%, someone like Frampton would be another big defining fight that he had against Stingy. So, yeah, answer to the question is that we prefer Frampton.
Excellent, thank you.
Great stuff, Ozzy. Final question from me, Steve, just regarding this on and off AJ Wilder fight. We heard Frank Warren calling bullshit on the old proof of funds during the week. Where do you stand on the whole thing? From a promoter's point of view, Steve, where do you stand on the whole thing?
Well, if you're not involved with the negotiations, you've got to stand in the middle and say you don't know. So, obviously, he said, she said, and all that's going on. I can't get involved in it because I know nothing at all about it. But I do believe what Frank said was that if fighters want the fights, they normally get made.
Well said. We'll leave it there at Steve Wood VIP. Thanks for joining us as always, Steve. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Like walking the dog here. I must tell you, last time he was seen in the boxing, he hit Jack Gatwell's gum shield.
You're always up to something.
All right, then, pal. See you soon.
Thanks, Steve. All the best.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Bye,
Thanks, Steve. Bye, mate. Bye.
Always good to get Steve Wood on the call. He knows what's going on at the cutting edge of boxing, etc., etc. Right. Where we're going to go next, that's the question on everybody's lips. Rob, I don't suppose you saw this fight down under by any chance, did you? Billy Dibb trying to win a world title against Tevin Farmer. We all expected Farmer to do the business. See anything of it?
No, I didn't see that one, but I did see my new favourite fighter, Obanov, against Jonas. Like, Obanov that blouse, baby. That's what I'm saying. So, that was a big upset, wasn't it? Like, where does Jonas go now? Like, she's not getting that Katie Taylor fight now down the line. Like,
could you imagine what would have happened if she had fought Taylor?
Oh, she'd been splattered. So Taylor boxed the ears off Obanov, like, didn't she? So, yeah. But yeah, good. More of her. Let's get Frank or some of them to sign her up. It's the future, baby. Women's boxing.
Happy to listen to him. Happy to see her again. Ozzy just taking us back on topic here. Tim Sue on the undercard. I know that Rob will have seen a lot of Costa's.
I saw that one again. A phantom knockout.
A phantom knockout. How much does he look like the old man, Rob? It's uncanny, isn't it?
It's a bit of him. Absolutely identical. Absolutely. If he's quarter the fighter as that was, he'd be decent. Like, but he looked all right. Like, but he didn't hit him. And the guy looked like he took a dive, didn't he? Like,
he did take a dive. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, it was a phantom knockout. Like, it's probably up there with the anchor punch from Ali Liston too. Like, that didn't land. Like, and there was and Takam, the famous AJ versus Takam stoppage, where there was the punches that didn't land. So maybe this is a new thing. We're just not up on it yet. It's like jazz. You have to listen to the notes that they're not playing.
I've got another one for you. Rob. What about Joe Calzaghe, Byron Mitchell? Do you remember that one? Mitchell actually got stopped while punching Calzaghe.
Yeah, I do remember that one. Don't be upset me bringing Calzaghe up. Jesus, I'm in good form. Like,
I have to do it, Rob. I have to do it.
So
Right, Donny.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Anything else, Rob?
No, that's it. But open on for the next PPV, baby.
Yep, happy to see more of her. Donny's back with us. Coming to you in a second, Donny. Before we do, Tim Sue, Aussie, absolute chip off the old block. If he fights like the old man he so clearly resembles, he will be one hell of a fighter. Costa Sue, of course, is the father we're referring to, in case you don't know. Not you, Aussie, in case anybody else doesn't know. Billy Dibb against Tevin Farmer. Tevin Farmer, nice boxer. Never know which way his eyes are looking, but they're looking at an IBF world title this time of the evening anyway. Super featherweight. He got hosed against Ogoa. He made up for it against Dibb.
Yeah, real good performance. Thought he would have got him out of there, to be honest, because at times Dibb looked absolutely goosed. But he held on. I mean, he's retired now. He's called it quits, Billy Dibb. Tevin Farmer, I think he wants to fight the Tank next, so that'll be an interesting fight. The Tank, we all know what he's like. He's in with Adrian Broner, but then he said he's going to sack him off because he's too much bad news. So that's a good fight, that. And they've got some history as well, Tevin Farmer and Gervonta Davis. Farmer, rightfully an IBF champion now, was robbed against the Agawa, then found out he was a juicer, got his opportunity again, took it, and now he's going to get a decent payday against Gervonta Davis. So that's going to be a good fight, that. The press conferences will be decent as well. And we never know what Gervonta Davis is going to turn up these days, do we? He seems to be knocking around with the wrong crowds, and we all know what that can do, that if you're not 100% in training and you've got somebody who is a genuine live opponent, there's every chance he could get beat.
It'd be interesting. I like Farmer. Sorry, Steve. No, I was just going to say I like Farmer. His story is like not the same. Davis is kind of was spotted early by Floyd, and he's kind of been nurtured a little bit. But Farmer's had to do it the hard way. I think he lost his first fight.
He did, yeah.
Long way. Yeah, so to come from there, like to win a world title, I'd like to see him and John O'Carroll down the line. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if that could be possible. I think him and John O'Carroll would be a right fight. I think the Davis one could simmer for a bit, like maybe let him have a defense. Although Davis did he say if he can't get Farmer next, he's going to go to 135? Like, maybe, I don't know, but I'd like to see O'Carroll in the mix there at some stage.
Farmer is another example of as well that early losses don't dictate a career, because he was 7-4, I think he was, or something like that. He then went on an unbeaten run from 2012 until, well, he's not lost since, because obviously the Agawa fight was wiped off, and again he was robbed on the cards, in my opinion. So it just shows that early defeats don't necessarily mean that you're a bad fighter, and that if you keep fighting and you keep improving, the opportunities present themselves and you do your best to take them. And that's exactly what he's done. He's got a great story, and now he's the champion of the world. But him and Carroll will be a good fight, actually. And Carroll has got one of those IBF ranking belts as well, which is he defended against Geraghty. So I don't think it'd be impossible to make. So that's definitely it's a good shout, Rob, and one that could be seen further down the line.
And just to echo what you said, B-Hop lost his first fight as well. So there you go.
Max Kellerman made a good point in a recent broadcast. I can't exactly remember which one it was, but he said if you have a fighter coming into a world title fight undefeated, then he hasn't learnt anything, which I thought was quite a prescient point. I saw Tevin Farmer completely dismantling Ivan Redcatch on an old Frampton Santa Cruz undercard. I can't remember if it was the Las Vegas one or the New York one, but I liked him ever since then. And he got shot in the hand last year. And the hands are pretty necessity for a boxer to have your hands. So for the fact that he got shot in the hand and he's able to come back, fair play to him. Don't know what kind of circles he's mixing in, but anyway, Gabe, I don't know what type of circles you're mixing in either. I don't know if you saw anything of the Billy Dibb Tevin Farmer fight. Tell me now if you did.
No, I heard it was a wash. Pretty one-sided from what I could tell, just by a few things I read online. Is that pretty accurate?
It was, so don't worry too much about that, because I've got another fight for you coming up. You might be interested in this one next week. Joseph Diaz, fresh off a defeat to Gary Russell Jr. only 3 months ago, Gabe. They're not messing about. They're putting him back in against Jesus Rojas, who only has one defeat himself, 31 years of age. Has a win over Abraham Lopez. He's on a massive winning streak. An interesting Jesus Rojas, who is currently 26-1-2. Going in against Jojo Diaz, who's 26-1. Really nice, evenly matched fight, this Golden Boy in Hollywood next weekend, Gabe.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it. I don't think there's a whole lot of other good stuff on next week, so that might be the most meaningful fight of next week, so far as I can tell. I think it could be a good fight, and I'm always up to watch something good. I think Joseph Diaz is not a bad fighter. I think he's got some stuff to learn. I think he's going to be a solid contender because he's still pretty young too. So I would expect him to do better this time than he did last time out against Russell. So I mean, there's that. I think I'll watch it for sure. Hopefully it ends up being pretty fun because, like I said, I don't think there's a whole lot on next week. I don't know.
Pretty much next to nothing, Gabe, to be honest, now that you mention it. In Finland, Edis Tatli is defending his European title against Frank Ukiwaga. I hope I've pronounced that right, Frank, if you're listening. Also, BJ Flores in a WBA heavyweight eliminator against undefeated Trevor Bryan. I mean, you could say, why on earth are they fighting for this? But it's the WBA, isn't it? Trying to bring up Trevor Bryan's record right now. He's 28 from New York. He's got 13 knockouts and he has beaten pretty much nobody. So, yeah, just stands to reason, doesn't it, there? Got a clip coming up soon from the man himself, Spencer Fear on the Knowledge, courtesy of Simon Alevey. Also, Bellew of the Weeks are coming up as well. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, then please take a second to press the subscribe button on the platform you're listening to this on. It just lets the providers know that you're getting value from what you like to, from us, what you're hearing, and you want to be around when we produce additional shows. Donny, I know that you want to be around when we produce additional shows. You'll be back next week, come hell or high water. Tell me about the stuff, Donny, that you missed last week. Dillian Whyte against Joseph Parker was on, but especially Micah Garcia against Robert Easter Jr. What did you think of last week's action, Donny?
Oh, well, I mean, I was a huge fan of Cesaro's knockout of Decom. Yeah, with the Dillian Whyte thing, I mean, okay, good win, but I feel like the thing that really strikes me is like the amount of like hype. Like every time you talk to like AJ fans, like real big fans, are like, oh yeah, he beat Dillian Whyte, and like I'm like, yeah, so I mean, this guy went life and death with Chisara and he lost the fight or whatever, and he got blown out by AJ. I mean, yeah, he did have that one moment where he hurt him, but other than that, he got pretty well dominated. And I mean, I don't understand why everybody's absolutely like, well, not everybody. I mean, but I'm just saying there seems to be like a promotional campaign to hype him up as basically one of the top heavyweights in boxing. I'm not entirely sure that he stands at that particular pedestal in the sport.
Well said, Donny. Talking of the Joseph Parker-Dillian Whyte fight, there was a fairly contentious knockdown in the second round. It appeared to come from a headbutt, but that's okay, according to the master knowledge himself, Mr. Spencer Fearon. Go on, Donny.
Not that good. I mean, he showed us that when he fought Huey Fury. I mean, the guy, like, he wouldn't be able to throw a straight punch to save his life. I mean, you could see where his punches are coming from a mile away. He throws a lot of looping shots or whatever. And it's a good win on paper, but I'm not really sold on like Dillian Whyte as being any great shakes, to be honest with you. And the win over Parker just doesn't really do it for me. I don't think Parker's very good. He just happened to get very lucky and back into a belt at one time, and now he's an ex-champion. So, okay, Dillian Whyte be the next champion. So, obviously they're gonna be marketing that pretty heavily.
Yeah, so in case anybody was wondering about the legitimacy of this knockdown in the second round, then Spencer has explained that apparently it's okay if the punch or the blow is caused from anything below the head to the belly button. It's okay, Donny. So listen to this. There's a bit of a preamble from Spencer talking about how he got his tickets for the fight, but he explains why the Parker-Dillian Whyte knockdown in the second round was legitimate. Listen to this.
Ian John Lewis made the two guys get on with it, right? And it was certain times where Dillian Whyte was getting a bit rough and tumble and leaning into him, throwing him over the right. These are the things that this is boxing, heavyweight boxing, right? And and it was a knockdown. I was complaining because I didn't think they called it a knockdown because I was sat. Fair play to Dylan. I got big up Dylan White. Dylan White, 3 o'clock. His younger brother said, sent me a Photoshop of the text saying, look, make sure you're there. And he sent me 2 ringside seats. So I got to big up Dylan White for that because Sky would want to give me something up in the gods. But yeah, I've got to speak about it on the show the next week. The Liberties. But don't worry about it. Thank you very much, Dylan White. And like, I came in.
Let's get his P45 in here. What's going on? Hold on. Do you know what he's talking about? This is going. Yeah, he says we will have to cut that out.
Yeah,
go on, carry on.
Right. So, but no, Dylan White gave me ringside seats. And from where I was sat, I said it was a knockdown. And I didn't think it was going to be called a knockdown because like how he got up, but I'm glad that it was a knockdown because it was a knockdown. And when you saw it again, what is a knockdown? If somebody administers a shot, it hits you. It doesn't matter where it hits you from the trajectory point of from your forehead all the way down to the top of your belly button. That's a knockdown. It was for a shot. He went over. That's a knockdown. Period.
What do you think about that then, Rob? That's a knockdown, period. If it's from the trajectory, you can headbutt someone or belly bounce them, and if they hit the floor, it's a knockdown.
This guy, like, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. Do you know what it is? I just kind of tune out from these guys. Like, I think I'm on a higher frequency these days. Back in the 6 months ago, that might have annoyed me, but now I just like, you know what I mean? He's just constantly pulling the company line, like, isn't it? What Dillian White didn't headbutt him then. We all imagined it. It was a figment of our imagination. It's a hologram. We live in a virtual reality. You know, these things happen. You can knock down fellas whatever way you want. What is he talking about? Like, how is this guy earning a living, giving analysis on Sky? Like, come on. Like, yeah, no, maybe I did get a bit more riled than I thought it would. But, like, you know what I mean? And then the worst thing about it is like, he gets very defensive then when he's challenged on his stuff because he knows he's making it up. Like, you know what I mean? That's not a rule. Like, what's that? Yeah, even if that is the rule, he hit him with the top of his forehead. Like, what are you talking about? Like, anyway, not saying it was intentional. The referee shouldn't have called it a knockdown. And it might have had some kind of, you know, but I thought Dillian White was a clear winner in that fight anyway. So, you know, props to him for the win for that. But, yeah, that's preposterous. Like, but people are listening to that. And then repeating it in the pubs and all that, like,
and on the pods.
That's exactly.
I was on the Toe to Toe podcast. That was Simon Alavey, who was making. He lets us know when the knowledge is talking shit, which is a frequent occurrence. I think that he was talking about Derek Chisora looking Ali like later on. I didn't actually get the clip of that. I didn't have a chance to listen to
Ali,
it.
like, what, when he was holding the torch for the Olympics? In hell, give me a break.
Ozzy, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but a couple of things from you, if you can, before we move on to Bellew of the Weeks and get out of here. First of all, the chat are talking about Prince Patel. Don't know if there's any updates from him, and if not, maybe a betting tip from you for the week.
Just give me a minute, and I'll look at the Patelster and see if there's an update from him. No, sadly not. He's not scheduled to fight on BoxRec. I think he's been one of the busiest fighters in the world this year. I think he's had about 16 fights or something like that. 16-0. He's only got the one draw on his record against the tough one Hinestroza. But it's only a matter of time before Patel returns to the shores of the UK and starts demolishing opponents back where he should be doing. So I look forward to his return. As for the betting, it's always difficult with boxing because there's always value in undercard fights a lot of the time. And they only get put late up during the week. As we know, the schedule's pretty bland at the moment. There's not much on. A couple of people were asking on my Twitter about the KSI Logan Paul fight. No care in the world about that. Couldn't give a fuck. So I'd steer clear of that. Anything could happen in fights like that. George Groves, Callum Smith. Groves is at 3-4, so just under even money at the moment. That is, I think Groves at evens for his experience and qualities is a pretty decent price, to be honest. But in terms of value, you need to stake something quite reasonably high. I said before, I'll be backing Terry Flanagan against Prograis. Flanagan's 9-2 best price. When that actually gets made and things like that, I'll look into that a bit more rather than betting so far out now. But to be honest, it's all pretty quiet. No real bets to be looking at when they do crop up, particularly undercard fights. I'll happily shout them up. I'll look at the Frampton one for next when's that? That's a couple of weeks off. When the undercard is on, I'll look at the prices of Collins Jr. against Stephen Ward, because there could be some value to be had there as well.
That's an interesting fight. I didn't even know that had been made, to be honest with you. That's not a bad fight. You know what? Might fancy Collins there, actually, Ozzy.
Yeah, Ward's not been in with anybody. He's 7-0. He's not the biggest of punchers, and he's fought bin men, really. He's not been within anyone of any quality. I don't think he's boxed anyone with a winning record, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be good enough to beat Steve Collins Jr., who, again, has got a similar record and has got the one loss on his resume against Paddy McDonough. That was for the BUI Ireland National Heavyweight title.
That's the Irish title, yeah.
Yeah. It seemed McDonough won it by 3 points. Not seen the fight or anything like that. So, but it seems a relatively decent, well matched scrap. I'll speak to Jack. He obviously trains with Stevie Ward and see what he's looking like in camp. But no, aside from that betting wise, there's just nothing around at the moment. But if there ever is, I'll definitely be sure to flag it up like we did with the Ryan Doyle bet, where I think he was 8-1 and made quite a lot of the listeners happy.
Ozzy's making the listeners happy. Long may it continue. Steve Collins Jr. is the son of Steve Collins Sr., in case you didn't know, the legendary court boxer who went in with Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, etc. Mr. Toad, that's McKetch, our friend over on Twitter. He says, never mind the drawing board. It's back to parenthood for Jonas, in my opinion. I think McKetch obviously sees the same as we do. Jonas is pretty much finished. Right, let's get on to the Bellew of the Weeks then. We've still got Rob with us. We've got Ozzy, we've got Gabe, we've got Donny. Stellar panel. Hopefully get Andy back on next week once his ban has been served. As I said, if he shows any modicum of contrition. Right, Lewis Taylor is nominated. Our old friend Porky Russ. Uncle Fester has been nominated to Lewis Taylor for saying that Billy Joe Saunders is the best southpaw in the world ahead of Lomachenko. And Usyk, haha, says Lewis. Nicolo has been nominated by Ben1207. This is science fiction, says Nicolo. He's talking about the Usyk Anthony Joshua fight. Let's be honest. Usyk is a tremendous technician, but was rocked by Bradis and by Gassiev. Maybe he would win some rounds, but AJ would do to him the same thing that Canelo did to Amir Khan. Craig Shuttleton has nominated the BBC. BBC Sport are claiming that Lee McAllister is a 5-weight world champion after his win over Danny Williams. Chad Hogan has nominated Charles Farrell for his top 5 of pound for pound. He's got Crawford at 1, Inoue at 2, Garcia at 3, Jamal Charlo at 4, and Usyk at 5. Chad Hogan has also nominated Naota from the Boxing Coalition for his list. I haven't got it in front of me, actually, but he had Swisaketso Rungvisai at number 1. I think he had someone called, I think it was Tanaka, one of the lower weight guys ahead of Lomachenko. It was, I think Naota's the type of guy who'd have Katsushige Kawashima still in the top 10, or maybe Chris Avalos. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Billy Boy has nominated Heavy D. Apparently, I don't know, he's some kind of YouTube celebrity. He said he was robbed in his fight against Kugan Cassius. Tar Heels jumped in and said, absolute robbery. These judges should be banned for life. You schooled that man and put on a boxing clinic. Great performance. I think it was a YouTube fight. Not sure what happened to that other YouTube fight, actually, wasn't it? Logan, somebody was spoke. I don't know if it's even taken place yet. We'll keep you updated on that anyway, probably. Michael Geerty has nominated Chris Eubank Jr. He went to a concert and took along the fake IBO world title that he won and then lost. He took along to this concert, obviously wooing the girls. They're all getting photos taken with him, regardless. Shane McGuigan is now training Luke Campbell. Exciting times ahead, says Shane. Major loss to Matchroom, says Gary. Matt says Bellew of the Week. Of course, Luke Campbell is just training with McGuigan. He's not actually leaving Matchroom. Michael Benson, talking about Shelley Finkel, saying that Eddie Hearn is lying. Kyle Duncan said that Eddie Hearn is lying. And Sam Stevens said, why would Eddie lie? And Chad Hogan says Bellew of the Week. Pretty self-explanatory one there. Brendan Schaub from Showtime Boxing was talking about the Mikey Garcia Errol Spence Jr. fight. I think Mikey Garcia gets it done via decision, says Brendan. Is it Brendan or Brandon? Whatever you call him anyway. Chad Hogan nominated him. Chad Hogan also nominated Graham Jarvis for putting up Muhammad Ali inspirational quotes to Dave Allen. Dean Glover has nominated Steve Bunce. Bunce, he said, talking about Dillian White, he said, this series of fights by White against Hellenius, Brown and Parker is the best trio of fights any British boxer had before a world title fight. Dean Glover nominated him. Andy also nominated him. For Eddie Hearn for saying to Mike Costello, Chisora versus Takam was the greatest heavyweight fight he had ever seen. Boxing Brave has nominated Frank Warren. We will be ringside, says Frank. Me, Anthony Yard, and Tundi in Atlantic City watching Sergei Kovalev and Dmitry Bivol. Value of the Week nomination, says Boxing Brave. They won't be putting Yard anywhere near him anytime soon. Ross Hamilton has been nominated by friend of the pod, Kevin Byrne, top Irish journalist. He says, I met with Johnny Nelson, the finest fighter ever to come out of Sheffield. Shudo Benson has nominated True Villain for saying that Luis Ortiz is a fraud and he's really 48 years of age. Whenever True Villain was tested on this, he pointed Mr. Benson to a Hatman Strikes Back video of proof that Luis Ortiz is in fact 48 years of age. Quite a few more to get through, everybody. Stefan WWFC, Wolves fan, but a casual, been outed by Simon Says Wow. He said the DAZN, Sky Sports is all good value. Where else we've got? Simon Alavi for nominating, has nominated Spencer Fearon for the clip that we played. Anthony Fowler has been nominated by Chad Hogan, talking about him and his bird out in Cyprus. Got to leave the bird, says Anthony, because there's a Matchroom show on. Cholo, Andy Patterson has nominated Boxing Kingdom for congratulating Terence Farmer and the new Speed Power Timing. Brilliant. Congratulations to Terence Farmer. Of course, that's Tevin Farmer. Declan Graffin, has nominated a Strong Value of the Week contender from Darren Donaghy. Who's he talking to here? Oh, Anthony Fowler. He says, mate, you're going to be frightening after 20 fights. I can see Carl Frotch written all over you. Hashtag the machine. D-Dog has nominated the Australian commentary team. They're absolutely brilliant all night. The co-commentator spent a lot of time coaching Billy Dibb from the commentary position. Hands up, mate. More head movement, Billy, he kept saying. Add to that, Billy Dibb's motorbike ring walk. Shirley Crabtree has nominated the Sweet Scientist. Quite a few people have actually nominated this one. It could be a strong winner. If the fight between Usyk and Tony Bellew happens, I'm going with Tony on points. He has enough to nullify Usyk with his size and reach. Not sure if Usyk is a fearsome puncher, but he's better technically. Might be another one, actually, I'm thinking of, everybody. Just going to take a drink of water, if you don't mind, before I lose my voice. Excuse me. David Tarbuck. I've got no Andy here, you see, to refer to while I do those little things off air. Andy, where are you? David Tarbuck has nominated a solid Bellew of the Week entry for Sky Sports pundit Carl Frotch, who proudly said he didn't bother watching Triple G against Canelo. But to be fair, he then blamed Eddie for the Joshua Wilder fight not happening, and Eddie was very unhappy. Cam has put up Eddie for saying that they're looking for an English ref for Joshua Povetkin because the English refs are the best in the world. Isaac Lowe has been nominated as well. Heartfelt stuff from Isaac, as we mentioned to Steve Wood earlier on Twitter. Try not to tear up. He said, sometimes I ask myself, why am I doing this, being away from my family, all miss out on things with friends and family, then think, full stop, to myself, not everyone got the chance to go win British title and move on to world level. Hashtag dream big. Have you ever got in contact with Isaac Ozzy? You should get him on the pod sometimes. He sounds like he's quite articulate.
No, but I can definitely arrange it 100% if we want to bring him on.
We should get him on. He might bang me out for taking the piss out of him, but I'm sure he doesn't mind. He seems like a decent enough fella. Who's this? Ray Verma has got nominated from the Boxing Bet Guru. I'd love to see Dillian White versus Manuel Charr for the WBA title, says Ray Verma. At least then Dillian will have something to put on the table. It's a bullshit belt, says Boxing Bet Guru. It's worth nada. White's the number one contender. That's enough. I know the WBA boxing has two versions of the title, says Ray, but let's give it the reverence it deserves. It still has a meaning and lots of champions have held it in other divisions, so it deserves respect. No, Ray, it really doesn't. Sky Sports Boxing have been nominated. Live blog, Sean McGoldrick versus Dylan McDonough, currently in action. They then put a picture of Natasha Jonas up against Obernerf. Tony Bellew. Yeah. Oh, a bit of Obernerf for you there, Rob. I know you're looking forward to that one.
Oh, yeah, more of that.
Here's the one I was talking about earlier. Mark McKeever. He's been nominated by Lewis Taylor and a number of other people. Tony Bellew talking about a possible fight between him and Alexander Usyk. It's all good and well, Alexander calling you out, says Mark McKeever. He's fought 13 punch bags. He'll have a shock that his jaw's never been tested, and I think he's in for a rough night against you, pal. Send him back home with nothing but a headache. Lewis Taylor nominated that one. So did Tommy Cahill. So did Simon Says Wow. a number of people nominated Mark McKeever. Yeah, he's fought 13 punch bags as Usyk, apparently, according to this eminent boxing knowledge. Tommy Roos has nominated Miles Shinkwin for saying that Katie Taylor beats most men in her weight, certainly in the UK. Max Stoke has nominated Joe Cordina for thinking he's Mayweather, but keeps getting caught by Masha Dodd. He's not going past British level, says Max Stoke. Dreadful card. And that's everybody, is all the ones that I've got. Quite a clear front runner here for Mark McKeever. He got nominated about 6 times. Any nominations from you, Rob?
Oh, yeah, got a good one. Dillian White posted a clip on his Instagram of Eddie Hearn doing the Kiki challenge. I don't know if you know that. It's a dance that goes with Drake's song "In My Feelings." We have to do a bit of a love heart and some dope moves, as the kids would say. Eddie definitely doesn't have no dope. That's bad because all that fella's rhythm left it on the yacht. So he's on the yacht partying with some real killers. Eddie is in his shorts doing the Kiki challenge. So you can have a Bellew of the week for that. And Bellew himself for his capers with Frank. Don't be asking Frank no badass questions. Bellew of the week for the fella who tried to ask him about proof of funds as well, and he just let him know he wasn't having it. Like,
no soft ass shit from Frank.
No, shut that soft ass shit up. Like, Gervonta
Frank's
Davis.
become a hero. Frank's become a hero, hasn't he, for you, Rob?
Classic anti-villain now. Frank is like, he's just like our anti-hero. Like, he just does not, you can't. Frank's the kind of guy you can't pee on his leg and try and tell him it's raining. You know what I mean? He's seen it all before, so that's what I like about Frank. But yeah, they're my nominations anyway.
Did you have Gervonta? Sorry, Rob, I cut you off in your prime there.
Oh yeah, Gervonta. I saw Gervonta asking a rapper for a fight today on Instagram as well. So I don't know what's going on with him. Like, clearly he focused on the career, baby. You know what I mean? Wants to get the Lomachenko. He's want to fight rappers.
Yeah. He wants to get rid of Bro now. I don't know, to be honest with you. Who have we got here? Sean at 01010_0. Write that down, everybody. That's Sean. Katie Taylor versus Natasha Jonas is planned for early 2019, according to Joe Gallagher. Don't think it'd be planned now, to be honest. What about you, Ozzy? You got any to throw in?
No, I've not paid much attention, to be honest, to her bellies this week.
No problem. Boxing Nut was on a couple of hours ago, just getting through to these now. Steve, has anyone got any gossip on James Helder? Not sure what's going on with the old Helder. I'm going to say I don't want to get involved in any litigation, Ozzy, but I suppose he's behind bars, apparently.
Yeah. I was shocked, actually, but then I had wondered why he hadn't been doing any of the interviews, and then saw somebody say he's been banged up for 2 years. I don't know if it's just one of these Twitter rumours, that spirals out of control, or it's actually legit. So, who knows?
Who knows? One thing I do know, Dean Glover's nominated An Evening with Tony Bellew, An Evening with the Bomber. One of the evenings is already sold out, so get your tickets fast. Gabe, any nominations for you this week?
Nope.
Short and sweet from Gabe. Don't know if Donny's got anything for us. Another late contender coming in for Mark Halsall. Anthony Titmus at Del Boy Chisora. What a fight. 5th time I've seen it, says Anthony. He's watched Chisora against Takam 5 times. Hashtag fight of the year. At Eddie Hearn as well. He's tweeted in there. Any Bellew of the Week nominations, Donny? Anything from you, Don? Nothing from Donny. Right, okay, then. Let's go through them then, shall we? We'll go to you first, Rob. I don't know whether to go for... I don't want to risk our future guest implications here by voting for Isaac Lowe, but I like this Mark McKeever one, I think, who said that Alexander Usyk has remarkably fought 13 punch bags, and he'll have a shock if he ever goes in with the Bomber. What do you reckon, Rob? Who are you going for?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to top that one. Like, I wonder, is that guy has he ever seen a fight like that guy? I'd say that, like, he's had 13 punch bags. He must not have a clue apart from anything he sees on Sky Sports. Like, what is he talking about? Like, yeah, no, that's a clear winner for me. Like,
it's going to be hard to top, Ozzy. We've had a few Anthony Fowler, a few for the Bomber, but I mean, Mark McKeever. You second in this one, Oz, or you got another one in mind?
Definitely that wanker.
Gabe, what about you? Who are you going for?
Sorry. I'm going to go for the guy that watched who was it? 5 times.
Chisora to Cam 5 times. That's Anthony Titmus.
Chisora to Cam 5 times. That's my winner.
Puts the tit in Titmus for you, Gabe.
Come again?
His name's Anthony Titmus. I said he puts the tit in Titmus.
Absolutely.
2-1 then, Donny. It could be riding on you if you're even there. Donny Baseball, top American contributor. No Dave the Hater Lowback this week, everybody.
What doesn't Donny? I vote for the guy that wanted to come. What's to come times? That's my winner.
Sound like Apu from The Simpsons. We've got.
He's the master of a million voices, Gabe. Do an impression of me.
I don't understand a fucking word he says when he gets wound up. Like, all you gotta do is talk like this, and it's like at the end of it, like.
All right, you're halfway there, dude. I think you have to put me in Northwest London somewhere along the line, where, you know.
Sorry, I got to practice on that one a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. We have to get Dave the Hater Low back on, I think, to do the impressions. Anyway, good chance, boys. Right, Mark McKeever, congratulations to you, sir. He looks like a big bodybuilder type, so I'm not going to be telling him anytime soon that he's won. If anybody wants to tweet him, keep me out of it. Thanks to Rapping Rob Kelly for coming on tonight. Also, Ozzy Smith, Gabe, Lewis, and Donny was here as well. Thanks to Donny. Dave the Hater Lowback was off, and he's got on his birthday. The Guru's quit. Kurt's quit. Maybe we'll get Andy back next week. I don't know about Smido. He's cleaning shit from under his fingernails at the moment, doing daddy duties. Also, thanks to our guests as well. Ozzy and John Evans are sorting out the guys every week for us. We had Dale Coyne, we had Danny Wright, and we had Steve Wood, Pod, one of our favourite guests as well, coming on. Great insight from those guys. Next week, I'm not really sure what the hell's going on as we went through. There's not a lot of anything, but we have got the previews for the following week for Carl Frampton, the big card over in Windsor Park. We'll maybe scale up a couple of guests who might go for an hour. We'll see how we get on. Thank you very much. Sorry, Ozzy, go ahead.
A couple of guests are already lined up for next week as well. And they're not from the north as well. They're from the Midlands area, which will please some of the chat who were asking why they're all from the north.
Well, what can you do? Thanks very much, Ozzy. Thank you to everybody listening in the chat, listening at home, etc. I've been Steve Wellings. We'll catch you all again next week. Bye.